be a part of the oceans and sky. When I was young, before my life, I was a part of the oceans and sky.
All right, here we go. We're back. This is episode 219 or 218.
218. 218.
I like getting them wrong.
218, yeah. I write them down every week.
Right. This episode 218, as Chris has kindly corrected me, even though I don't like being wrong, apparently.
I'll vouch for that.
Yeah. Who likes being wrong? Shall I go through the normal rigmarole?
It's up to you.
We release a show every Saturday. Every Saturday it's released. You can subscribe to the website if you want notifications. Also, we put the first hour out on Podomatic, and the first hour is also on the website, sheepfarm.co.uk. And you can watch, if you remember, the full podcast generally, although we're going to release the full podcast here. We're going to try and keep it YouTube friendly, and we'll put it all out on YouTube because we're doing the live show down in Bournemouth, when you're probably listening to this, at Rise Above. Which will be interesting.
Yeah.
Them lunatics.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the people are going. I'm on about the crack me up, man. They crack me up.
Yeah, God knows what we're walking into there for.
Yeah, I know. It freaks me out a little bit when people come up to you because I think it's something you're not. Because I'm not anything. Like I'm sure it does, Chris. It's an odd situation.
Yeah.
I wind now Jacob up with it though.
I like chatting shit to people though.
No, there's not wrong with chatting shit, but I'm a researcher. I don't know most of this stuff until I researched it, so I'm as blind as everybody else in a way.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing about this, isn't it? We've learned a lot doing it, as much as anyone else listening or listening to whatever else listen to.
And to be honest with you, I don't really know where it gets us all, if you like, researching and learning all this stuff. I don't, is it useful? Is it more useful? I think the health stuff's useful. I think even the legal stuff's probably useful in this realm, whatever this realm is.
It's part of the sheep farm journey.
But I think I think the deep dives on the genealogy and stuff like that just show the matrix in effect.
It all
repeating itself.
It all does, and I don't know. It's good to reassure yourself that you're not going insane, and it's interesting if you find it interesting. I find a lot of stuff.
I find it very interesting. Yeah.
I listen to different. I kind of chop myself through different stuff because I always say I get loads of time in my shed, so I uniquely got like 5 hours some days just listening to stuff.
Yeah,
not visual stuff, just podcasts.
They were the good old days. I spend 5 hours researching now.
Yeah, but I'm painting frigging.
I know you
teeth. I'm painting teeth. Whenever you ring me, I'm painting teeth.
Yeah, painting teeth.
Bloody busy in my little sculpture business, mainly in America.
Right.
If I was a younger man, I'd move to America.
You don't need to.
Well, you'd
go to Chicago.
I'd sell more, wouldn't I? I'd have an end. Because of the postage and stuff. I've got no enthusiasm to move there.
No inkling to leg it to a
can't be bothered.
From here to that, from one shithole to another.
One mental asylum to another mental asylum.
Yeah, another mental asylum. That's it really for intro. I'm not going to go into any deeper. I'm sick of reminding people how to log in and not log in. It does get a little bit monotonous after a while. Do you know, I was thinking earlier on, when we were kids in our little village, there were one day in a week, like Sunday, where it were very, it was like a flashback in time, where very calm, and in summer you'd hear about 5, 6 o'clock, you'd hear church bell ringing. People would get out and walk up. We'd be in park or something like that, playing. We didn't go to church, but you see people walking up. It were very serene. And I was just thinking, is there any times like that now, when you walk through
You don't know because is it an
Sounds-
age thing or is it an age thing? Is it
Am I
just
looking
an
back
age?
through rose-tinted spectacles?
Possibly.
Or,
Hey, I tell you what, funny you say this. I told this story at work today. My nipper's 7 this week, and I remember distinctly
what day is his birthday?
Saturday when we were down at yeah. Imagine how much I've had to spend to wangle him. No, it doesn't matter.
I think they'd be happy to see you back here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's my nipper. I said, I'm going to do this thing on Saturday for your birthday. She said, "We'll have my presents in the morning." I went, "Yes, don't worry."
Yeah. Now piss off.
And then they're doing a birthday party at the zoo.
Right. They're all girls that are going.
A 7-year-old girl doesn't want to trust the old dad there. I know, exactly.
No. Oh, well, I think you're letting her down.
Well, I think Lou actually wants me out of where, to be fair.
Weird, so do I.
Yeah.
Poor
what
Chris.
was I about then? I was getting to them.
Flamingo legs?
You
You might see them at zoo.
Artifarty flamingo leg. But one thing that my nipper's doing at school, she's been doing, again, Great Fire of London at school.
1666.
1666, yeah, already has suspicions after her eyes, don't they?
Yes.
And then, funnily enough, I was telling someone at work, they said their grandkids been doing this, did the same thing last year. So there's still, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn about it because it is history, but I've always had my suspicions because in London, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but there's a place called Monument, which is got its own tube station monument. Me and Lou met round there. That's where I used to work in different city boozers, cooking, chefing, basically. And there's actually a monument, and it's a massive tower if you Google it, and it's got a big eternal flame on top, which has already got your alarm bells ringing. And if you light it down, apparently that's where the fire started, the Great Fire of London, Pudding Lane, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would suggest, and I didn't know this. I'd walked past it so many times, and one day I just read the plaque and it said that, and your suspicions already arise, don't they? So it went down. It's a massive monument as well. You can imagine how hard it was to build that in them days. Probably couldn't build it now. It went down in 1666 when the fire. They started building it in 1671, which is not long after, is it? For something like that. Especially as all city's been decimated, and then they're going to let's focus on a fucking monument saying where it started.
I think that's what you should do. Where are monuments for Spanish flu?
Where are they? Yeah, exactly.
Don't exist, do they?
No. But it's got literally the eternal flame on the top. So I would suggest, and like when they're talking about it in schools, in the curriculum, I can never say curriculum, they're keeping it alive, aren't they? And I think like the World War II poppy thing and thing, it's a celebration.
That's World War One. Yeah.
World War One thing, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's all the wars, isn't it? It's all the veterans.
Yeah.
But it's a celebration of something that they carried out, I think, an operation that got carried out successfully.
Well, it's another story like Guy Fawkes or these types of stories that are just played out all the time, aren't they?
But you would guess at that point they wanted to flatten London and start again.
Yeah. Yeah, but gentrify it.
Yeah. It's like the same as the Blitz. They did it again, didn't they?
Yeah.
Got rid of a certain thing.
I think it happens over and over again, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah.
Just clear places out.
I tell you something I saw funny the other day. I was in the pub. We went for a Sunday lunch, right? And it was actually really interesting to see. There's this guy, and he looked like he was with his family on two tables. I'm guessing him and his missus and the kids, and then another older couple on another table. And I was having something to eat with missus and sis, and I heard him say, "Economic hitman."
Right.
Who said that? I looked round, there's this guy there.
John Perkins.
And he was animated, right? Yeah, obviously, he's the book Economic Hitman. And he was talking to this old boy on this table. You could see he was animated. His hands were waving around. And he was trying to talk to everybody about Economic Hitman and tell them about it. And he looked frenzied, And you could tell no one was interested, right? And then I just watched him go from like this animated guy waving his hands about. And then he just kind of leant back and he had his arms crossed. And I thought, he's fucking given up because no one's interested. And I thought, how many times have you been in that position? And he just kind of went, and then I heard him sort of talking about football or whatever, and I could tell he just lost all his animation. It had gone. He wasn't interested. He crossed his arms and he was just going, yeah, why not? Yeah. And I thought, if just one of you'd have engaged him a little bit, he'd have been talking for ages.
They're not going to engage him talking about that.
No.
I lent my book, a copy of my book, to somebody, one of my staff at work once.
Never got it back.
Didn't get it back. No.
But I bet everyone listening to this has been that guy. Lou said to me, I said to Lou, I told Lou, she said, go give him one of those sheet farm cards a day. I nearly did, and then I kind of thought I can't be bothered.
Well, see, I would have had a talk, but even though I'm not.
They were at the other side at pub fight.
Okay. Yeah, but you could have made a beeline.
I couldn't have gone. I couldn't have gone over to the table and started talking to him. I just couldn't.
Could have made a beeline and said, "Yeah, I've got that book."
I just thought it was a funny little observation. I went from animated to deflated in about 10 minutes.
Oh, couldn't give a shit. I've tried once. Yeah, I've tried. Apparently, they've changed the life expectancy or number of people dying has gone down now. No, especially since the recalculated.
Changed how you count it.
Yeah.
I actually found that article again.
Did you?
Recently, actually, because I was looking at it. How they changed the national statistics, changed how they count excess deaths. How do you do that?
So what you're saying, the last 100 years of excess deaths then, so all them deaths that you said died of smallpox and measles and things, they were wrong then?
Either. Yeah.
No, they still count them. They're real, them ones are real. That 100 million for the Spanish nonsense, that was real as well, even though they didn't,
Are they not going to go back and recount them then?
No, they don't need to recount them. All the Divic deaths.
Recount them.
Don't need to recount them. They're real. Even though if you had a test and 2 weeks later you fell off a cliff, it were obviously 91 Divic.
I don't know why, but I ended up on the BBC website. I don't really look on it at all anymore. And I read an article about, and the article was entitled, this is why I looked at it, it was entitled, people trying to claim for damages from the jib jab. So it started off that, right?
Just be careful what you're saying. We're trying to put this on YouTube.
I didn't say out, did I?
No, you didn't say out there. No. Just saying.
I don't think you ever do anymore.
No, I don't think we do. But we're a bit out of practice, aren't we? Because we've got his own thing. Platform, you say what you want, don't you? It don't matter if you cock up.
Yeah, but you still do use the code words. You start.
Yes,
we've been ingrained. We've been ingrained.
Britney's.
We've been ingrained. But the article went on from telling this story about this guy who'd been in a coma, totally screwed, can't work again. You think he's blind, and he got the maximum payout, which was. Is it
120 pence? Yeah,
and he's missing. So that was
and a lot of scoffing.
That was the headline of the article, right? And then it told this story of this guy. And it had a picture of him in a coma. Poor fucker, right?
That'll be useful. 120 grand.
That's exactly what we were saying. Saying it was super rare, and
super rare, yeah.
And then it went into how at the inquiry, this. I'm not laughing at this. This young fella had died, right? Because, and this is what then took up most of the article, right? This young fella had died because he didn't get his jibby jab in time. He'd been delayed, so he didn't get it. So he died. But he got it. He got one, but it was late. It was like March 2021, right? So for some reason he got it late, and then he died of COVID. Now, what do you think he died of in reality? I would say.
I think because he got his arm spear late.
Yeah.
If we got it early, Chris.
Yeah.
You think if he'd have got it early, how many lives that would have saved?
No. But the whole article that was about the conversation was about this story, saying how horrible.
Jacko sent me an article today.
How could he have died of COVID if he got the tap, but he got it a bit late?
Because they don't want to tell you that the tap was a total waste of time because it wasn't for that, were it? With something totally different. And
we know how many people got slapped with the COVID thing. So they must
don't say that either. I'm a bit dipsy when you say that.
What?
It sounds too much like the real word.
Okay. So they must give him the test when he'd actually passed away. Then.
Because they obviously work really well when you've croaked.
They were slapping them on anyone, weren't
they? Yeah. I scrapped my car the other day and took it for an MOT test. It still worked, I just had an hubcap.
Did you see that figure sent? Yeah.
No, but I want to go back to that. Yeah. Jacko sent me a story about a girl who'd passed away from long Divic.
Right.
For the symptoms. Can you remember last week when we told him this was a couple of weeks ago? Crabclaw sent me this. He's got flamingo legs as well. In fact, I used to call him gooseneck or swan neck, right? In fact, Jacko said to me the other day, I'm on about something totally different now. He said, Chris has got as many fucking names as me. Anyway, last week we spoke about, and you sent me a thing over, you put it on Instagram about them coming out with this like Divock from Yale.
Well, it's because Yale in America have now decided that it has damaged
the arm spears. Yeah. So, but a week before that, there was a story out, probably coincide with this shit coming out, that this girl had died from the symptoms, a bit like Derek Draper type of thing. She hadn't died; she got a brain injury. But the whole article, right? It didn't mention anything about the arm spears. Didn't say she'd had one. Didn't say she hadn't had one. Didn't say anything. Yeah.
But it's because now that Yale have said it, I think we mentioned this last time, Yale scientists who risked careers to disclose negative Divock diddly-do. Studies say more is coming. Right? So, right, what does that mean? Bloody hell. Yale scientists uncovered bizarre biological changes linked to Divock jibber-jabberers.
Well, if you remember, it were all about access, weren't it? It were about people not having access to them.
Rarity. The toilet roll.
Rarity, not having access to jabs. Piers Morgan were on telly saying, blah, 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 all this nonsense.
Go get them on time.
Yeah. And now obviously he realise, whether he does realise or he's still playing the stupid fucking game. When we're going out to Rise Above in Bournemouth, I've put together an hour's worth of Matrix to talk about. I thought that'd be quite a good idea. I've got quite a few notes about the people.
It can go anywhere then.
Look, I don't think we'll read any of the notes, to be honest with you. Not with Machine Gun Kelly, Lance, Andy PG, and that's good. That's what I want. Because I think it'll stimulate a lot of anger.
Stimulate a lot of conversation.
Well, they're actually videos that you can't play. You couldn't play on here on BoobTube. But
just by them doing that, whatever experiment, whatever they've done, looked into it. I pulled off very quickly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 10 articles. So it's just there everywhere now that Yale have now discovered.
But even though it's Yale, and everyone says, "Oh, these are proper scientists," type of thing. If you said it to anybody's tapped mates, right? It's still taking them to concentration camp and asking where's Wi-Fi? What's Wi-Fi password? Isn't it?
No.
This is the concentration camp. Like that poor guy in that restaurant that were trying to tell him about the economic hitman. I bet people just thinking, "I wish he'd fucking shut up. I'm out on Sunday, having a pint of beer, and this dickhead's trying to talk sense to me. I've been working all week, blah, blah, blah. I want to watch football, this, that, and other."
Actually, I've got a little bit to add to that. He walked past me, right? I thought I'd gone to the toilet and I needed a was, so I went in and I actually put my wallet in my pocket because I had a sheep farm card in it. But I think he'd gone out for a fag. Right. But then I'm following him into a toilet.
So now you're meeting people in toilets. Are you sure it wasn't a red hanky you're putting your ass pocket?
I never told you that story. I was telling Luke.
It weren't Blue Oyster you were going in, were it?
I went to a chef meeting once in London, right? This is funny. And I got into Liverpool Street Station, right? I went down into the cubicles. I had a chef meeting, anyway, I went down into the cubicle. I was having a was, right? Yeah. I looked over to my right-hand side, and I saw what I thought, right, was a young fella helping a disabled person, get to the urinal.
I don't know whether I want to hear this story.
No, just hang on. And I looked, and I thought, was that? And I looked again, and they were obviously giving him a hand job, right?
Nice.
But then behind him, in another cubicle, right, there was a guy watching over top of cubicle.
And there were you. In your chef gear.
Right.
And there were you in your chef gear.
No one in the chef gear. I was just going to a meeting in London.
Did you have them chef hats on and all them tall hats on?
The toilet was busy. The toilet was busy.
Anyway,
this is the funniest bit, right? I rang Lou and told her in the afternoon, right? And she's like, "What time were it?" I went, "What fucking difference does it make? It's a weird thing to do." Anyway, long story short, every time I told someone the story, right? They went, what time were it? And I thought, why is everyone asking what time it was? And then I was telling a guy at work. And what I was telling him was, because he was quite a funny guy, I was telling him, I was just trying to get to the point that everyone asked me what time it was. Before I got to it, he went, what time were it? You're like a 10th person. And then me and Lou were on about it the other day, and she goes, well, you think they've had a beer. For the record,
that makes it all right then.
That's what I mean. It were 8:30 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And Lou's like, yeah, but... And I said, yeah, but what's the right time then for something like that to happen? She's like, well, a couple of beers in the afternoon. I was like, yeah, but it's still weird. No matter how many beers you've had.
Don't matter what that isn't a toilet anymore.
No,
that's a homosexual sauna.
What time were it? Why is everyone so obsessed with time?
But what I don't understand is why toilets? I mean, there must be better places to go.
It must be.
Is that a gay fetish?
It must be part of the fetish.
I know when we used to go to Hacienda, early 91 or whatever it was, 92. We used to go to a club, and I should have known by the name. It was called Mantos.
Right? Oh, I remember. I went there.
You went there with yeah. And it was sort of a mixed club. It was. I mean, most of the good music we played in gay bars in Manchester, and went to a few clubs. But I mean, I'm not homophobic at all. But when I went to the toilet once in there, and I about turned like, pirouetted like bloody Torvill and Dean out.
That was just turned them on.
Yeah, that probably was playing hard to get, Darky. When I saw two pairs of Doc Martens face it the same way in Cubicle.
All right, yeah,
and it was like a scene out of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Anyway,
what are we talking about? This? What have you brought? This?
It was my fault.
Yeah, no.
I brought that story up for some reason. I don't know why.
It obviously popped into your head for some reason, didn't it?
Yeah. Did you see?
I'm sure lots of people have had weird stories like that, though.
I sent you over that. They've landed a probe on the moon, lunar lander. Yeah. Lunar lander, I've realised, LL-33.
Right. I saw that. It looked like Thunderbird 3.
What do you know what I find weird about it? It's not actually publicised that much. They've landed something on the moon for the first time since 1972, America, except for once. They did one last year. They landed something there. And then India have landed some at China, Japan.
Yeah, that looked like Scramble.
That looked ridiculous, yeah. Galaxian.
The fact found it, though.
But they don't... What I find odd is they didn't broadcast it that much, this one.
Surprising.
I saw it on YouTube that they'd landed it there, getting ready to land it. But they can't land humans. They haven't landed a human on there since 1972. But yeah...
They didn't land one then.
They didn't land one then. But what I find hilarious, right, because they made such a bad job of that little thing in the 60s, 70s, which were clearly tin foil. I think you can see fucking staples on it, can't you? They've got to continue with the tin foil thing, haven't they? So the new one still had gold tin foil on it.
I know. This was gold tin foil, wasn't it?
Gold, yeah, they've upgraded to gold tin foil. But if you look at that old lunar lander, the one that went with the buggy and all the guys on it, I mean, come on, man.
I know.
In the zero...
bouncy wheels.
Yeah, flying around finger in what is it? In a vacuum. Vacuum just destroys everything, doesn't it? That little thing was in a vacuum.
No, tin foil doesn't get destroyed.
It's insane. You've got to be off your tits, haven't you?
I mean, that video that you sent me, right? I looked at it and thought, well, it's obviously not real. It was obviously not real.
It's not supposed to be that, though, is it?
But the way the woman were talking over it, it made it sound like that this were real.
Yeah, well, again,
I reckon when people, because it were live as well, why would that be live? That were like watching one of those, like my Ewan used to watch these bloody live things with gaming and what have you, you know?
Yeah.
That were like watching one of those things.
Yeah. Just absolute bollocks.
Well, and also, why is it, I mean, obviously the pictures are fake, but why can't you just shove a camera out? Why all these cameras that we've got?
Just have like 10 round it, just constantly beaming out.
I'll just put them on a satellite. It'd be easy. All them thousands of satellites that apparently flying around Earth that our friend Elon,
I think they've had to do
Elon sent up.
They've had to do the 33 lunar landings because it's been so long since they actually went there that they've got to keep.
Yeah, Chris, they lost blueprints.
Oh yeah,
give them credit. I mean, somebody they were a filing drawer, and somebody moved them out. Put the box of chocolates in, moved them out, and got them out, and had a couple of fags, and started looking and reminiscing over them. And they didn't know where to put them, just lost them. They only had one copy.
Got to be off your tits, isn't it?
They only had one copy. I remember seeing the guy saying we don't know where the blueprints are.
He's that famous guy. He's on. I think he's on the bloody. What is it now? Isn't it the space station?
Is he?
I think he was. What's his
I
name?
hope so.
I know you mean. He doesn't seem like a full shilling, does he?
No.
Is it him who said I'd go back in a nanosecond, but we lost all the data.
You lost all data. Yeah.
I bet you're right bollocking for saying that. Didn't
I don't know. Did he? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You look at everything; it's just like a giant. Everything's a charade, isn't it? I mean,
there were some fellas talking about Trump and the Zelensky stuff at work today, and I just kept saying it's WWF. It's a fucking charade. There's nothing happening there. It's all just. It's not real, is it?
Well, whether the whole thing's real or not, we'll never know. It doesn't look real.
There was that bit where he got angry with Zelensky. That looked a bit real. That did. I mean, my view is there are several groups vying against each other, and it's always going off. A bit like Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones, isn't it? Yeah.
The odd thing is, when you do the genealogy of all these people, right? A lot of them, it's like they're reenacting the same things that have happened in their bloodlines over generations. The Crusades, war in Crimea, blah, 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 blah. All these same things are going on and on and on. It's like it's a code that's written into them that they can't help but play out constantly.
I was trying to explain to my missus my opinion the other day, boring her to tears, bless her, while she walked backwards towards the kitchen. But it's like there's these folk who run this place at the moment, these psychopaths, these families, as you say, these bloodlines who run it. Like I've probably said this before, but it's like there's rules that they can't disobey. For instance, they can't disobey because that's what the clench is in it. But Russia would have grassed up America if they didn't do the moon landing. But they're all in it together, and that's one of the things they can't.
Yeah, they're probably like the Ten Commandments. There are probably a set of rules.
Equal 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
You can't question the moon or the shape of the
outwardly.
Earth outwardly. You couldn't question Convid without having strict rules on what you're allowed to say.
You can't question the South Pole and all that type of stuff.
You can't question Antarctica. There's certain things you're just not allowed to.
That thing in Switzerland.
Maybe other than that, maybe the people who run the shit show, maybe it's free for all. Do what you want. Because one thing for sure is this: they would be egomaniacs in that system, in their little 1% system of what it is, and they would be fighting with each other because they're psychopaths. So there would be inward fighting.
Well, I would say
that's what we witnessed their fight.
This trauma bin that we live in has to have these lunatics coming up with the fear to push us on the hamster wheel to create the energy, the luge energy for whoever needs it, whoever's needing it. Because that's what it all. Everything, it doesn't have to, going back to what we're talking about the Sunday where that Sunday where it were very picturesque in that small village in a summer's day in our didn't like that anymore. That's changed. That's gone. Right? It doesn't happen like that anymore.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I remember when we lived there, because my nipper's turning 7. I remember, and I had a Batman t-shirt on, and I don't know why a 7-year-old.
I want to come back to that Zelensky stuff and what have you.
But I remember saying to myself, this is a good year, this is, being 7. I'm really enjoying being 7. Right. How weird. I remember thinking it. I don't know why, because it was a really good summer, I think. And I think we just moved into the house. So I remember thinking, this is a really good year, this is. I'm really enjoying this year. I'm enjoying being 7.
I remember, ironically, 1984 being a good year. I'd have been about 14.
73.
Yeah, strange.
That would have been 1982, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And the late 70s. Round about when the World Cup were on in Argentina. I don't know why I remember that. I remember them throwing loads of toilet rolls and stuff like that onto the pitch as part of their thing. They were, but them days don't exist because kids stay in the house now.
Well, I will say this fight, even though you could be a bit reminiscent, in the village we grew up in, where we're having a live show, just in that village, there used to be a carnival every year in the fields next to the chip shop, and people used to have floats and tractors.
Locals used to organise it. Our mum used to organise it, and a few others.
Part of it, yeah. They'd have floats because we won a fancy dress competition. Yeah, because we went as George and the Dragon, and I went on a horse Pepper, and you were dressed as a dragon. Yeah. And I remember I had a sword, and you moaned because you wanted a sword, so you were a dragon with a sword.
Right. How old would he have been then? That was like 1977. I'll have been about 7.
Yeah.
You'll have been about 3 or 4, 4 or 5 or whatever.
I reckon I was about 6, so I guess.
No, probably 78. That probably 78. That.
Yeah, no, you're right, because I remember my mum and Pat making costumes when we lived in the caravan.
Yeah,
like the gypsies we were.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know what I'm on about.
Yeah, no, you do know what you're on about.
Yeah, but
it's not looking through rose-tinted spectacles. If again, going back to what we knew about the 60s and the 50s,
and
where the change.
There used to be 20 of us, or 15, 20 of us, all going down woods together, making rope swings and fucking chasing each other around and playing Extreme and stuff. I remember there was sometimes 20 of us, 15 to 20 of us playing games and
lighting fires and all sorts of
stuff.
stuff.
Lighting fires and all shit. Yeah. Go on, sorry, what were you going to say?
You don't see any of that. I don't think it is looking through rose-tinted spectacles.
No, it's not. No, I'm talking about
it. If right, I'm not one of these people who say, "Oh, we're better in our day." I don't want to say that.
It's just different.
Dad used to say.
It's different.
Not even that. But if there were a plan at some point post Second World War or even pre-Second, the Tavistock plan, let's just say, to change culture, then you're not looking back through rose-tinted spectacles. That's an excuse you're giving it because you don't want to be that person that says our day were better than yours. You know.
No, I don't want to say that. Yeah.
But you're looking back because that doesn't happen anymore. That thing that was nice doesn't happen anymore. When people were walking around without that type of stress and fear, even though the Cold War and it was. But if you think if you think since the 1980s, the amount of generational fear that's been raised, the level it's been raised to, and it was raised to quite a high level, going back to what we've spoken about, like the nuclear nonsense and stuff like that, AIDS and things like this. Imagine what it's been raised to now, with all this technology being fired at people.
Instantaneous as well. Instantaneous.
Our clinic, right? I'll run a scenario. This is the type of thing you're up against. Our clinic's got a car park at back, right? And we own 2 spaces within our clinic.
You mentioned this last week.
Yeah. It's a different thing. A woman comes into the car park. She's a dog walker. She's obviously got a job. And she parks up. And I say, you know you can't park there, don't you? It's a private car park. Yeah, but me client says I can park here, just drop his dog off and come back. I said, where's your client live? She said, over there. I said, well, he doesn't even live in this. That's over that wall, right? She said, yeah, but I'll have to ask my client. I said, no, you don't have to ask your client whether you can park and drive. Right, no, it'd be nice. I wouldn't tell her that. I was just seeing what she was saying. So I said to her, that's like, I was talking to a lad. I said, that's like me coming and parking in your garden and saying, well, my client said I could park there.
Yeah.
And you say, well, move your car because I'm going out. No, because my client said I can park there. I'll have to go and ask him. And she looked at me, but she looked at me like blank, like I were a total twat, right? And I weren't being a total twat with it, like, you know, like you're out of order. And I said, well, the road, there's no park. There's nobody parked on the road. You can park on the road. Why do you need to park here? Take a dog out. Well, and she kept saying it, and I thought, that sums up what people are like nowadays. There's no reality. You know?
There's no logic in the discussion.
You know what? I apologise, or not even apologise. I'll be 5 minutes in the future. Can I just be a second? And I'll just do this, and then I'll go. Yeah, fine. Yeah, not an issue. Not the stupid conversation that you have, and that's just a conversation with one person. I'm using it as an example, not about my car park or anything like that. Just more the fact that these conversations you have with people now, it's a weird. You're having a weird. It's like you're not even in the same conversation. I mean, I don't know this lady. I don't know if she was tapped or not or whatever. But it's like you're not even. They're not even in your world. It sounds a bit crazy, that. Going back to that idyllic village where you go and knock on the door, call for your mates, go into their house, the mum would give you a glass of orange or something like that, and you'd have a mess around in back garden or whatever, and or they'd come over to your house and they'd have a glass of fizzy pop or whatever it was.
I remember going on a bike ride with no water in the summer, no money, no water, not even thinking I'm going to get thirsty. And me and my mate had to stop at a farmhouse, knock on the door and ask for we were so thirsty, like dehydrated, and asked for a pint of water. Yeah. And they gave us one. I don't know if they do that. If you did that now, they just
weren't
bolt the door.
They weren't shocked to see her spook there, were they? In 1975 or 1980. Might have been, yeah.
Bit of a novelty.
Yeah. Didn't give you coconut water, did they?
I tell you another thing. When I was in that same pub, actually, weirdly, one of the chefs, I think it's my sous chef actually, he bumped into me. Who was working there. I hadn't seen him.
Not in toilet.
I hadn't seen him for about 3 years, and just how quick things have moved for her. And I told him that story about because we were on about offending. He's a Lithuanian lad, quite a Larry fucker. And I said to him, we got onto the subject, and I said, first time I've been knocked speechless at work when I said to that girl, move that over there, sister. And she came and said, I'm not actually a girl. And I said to him, it's the first time I've actually just gone fucking. And he said the same thing happened to him.
Right.
So I hadn't seen him for 3 or 4, but that was a conversation we had, which we would not have had
You'd never had that
4 years ago.
Well, did you see that? My missus sent me a picture, a screenshot of Danny Dyer sat at Brit Awards or something like that, and he was sat next to either, I don't know if it were a bloke or a woman, who identified, I think, as a horse. They were physically dressed up as a horse, right, at the Brit Awards, and people were laughing or clapping them and stuff like that, because they identified as a fucking horse.
What,
There are
like
videos. What, sorry?
Within like a pantomime level costume, or
It were weird. Look it up. Honestly, it were weird. These, at my young in school, there's a couple that think they're cats. You could tell because when you go pick them up in playground, licking their ass. I don't, and you can't say anything to these people.
because you're a lunatic.
Yeah, because you're the bad
bloody hell,
person,
yeah.
lunatic.
Just looking at the picture of it. So there's loads of pictures. They clearly paraded this horse thing around, didn't they? Fucking hell.
Have you seen that woman? Anybody? If
Looks
you put
like Beast out of Beauty and the Beast. Do you remember?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's more like it. Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
But
It's quite an elaborate costume, isn't it?
Yeah, put a lot of time and effort into being an horse. How come they sat in Brit Awards?
Why have they got invited to?
Why are they in a stable?
There's loads of pictures of them. It's like I said before. It's like 2000 AD used to joke about things like this in the future, that people have body modifications and they'd have eating competitions to make themselves really fat, and it's actually happening.
Yeah,
bloody hell.
Weird, isn't it? And these people. I mean, Danny Dyer, by the way, has got a royal heritage. I think that were on Who Do You Think You Are?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Why is he sat next to this horse person?
I don't know. Imagine turning up right at Brit Awards and you sat next to Red Rum.
Well, imagine if you're an employer, of people.
I'm out. I'm going.
And one of them turns up and you say, "I'm not employing someone who thinks they're a fucking horse." You'd get done.
Yeah, I know you would.
You'd be the problem, not the.
And if you give them a chair, they might want straw.
Bale of air for the lunch.
Ain't it?
I'm sorry.
Imagine a vending machine, you might have to change it because they want pony nuts in it.
Put pony nuts in it. Little miniature bales of air.
Like a box of shredded wheat with bales of air in it.
Tiny little bale just drops out.
Like them you used to get on your railway set. What happens if a couple of people identify as cats and a dog in your office? What your vending machine going to look like then?
Fucking hell! Come on, man. What?
No.
I'm not a girl. I'm actually a horse.
Yeah, I'm a female horse as well.
Fucking hell!
I know.
It's getting funnier, isn't it? It's getting crazier and crazier and funnier and funnier.
This is the world. Somebody put a tweet on. I saw it on Ed's Ed from the Outer Light, and he said something like, "Putin. It'd be terrible if Putin takes over. Imagine living in a country where immigration's out of control. There's rape gangs running around." Being sarcastic, obviously. I think you can add that identifying as animals to that list. Imagine how bad it'd be. It's like me in-laws came talking about that Zelensky and Trump thing, And yeah, look, I'm not a Trump fan at all. My view on this is he's got in saying he's going to do all this stuff. But he's going to lead people into this central bank digital currency nonsense. No
100%,
taxes.
yeah.
But if you don't have taxes, you've got to have this. If you don't have taxes, you've got to have this chip in your head. If you don't have taxes, you've got to have that's where it's
But
going.
like we said before, he has brought in a lot of juicy stuff.
He's brought in a lot of people. He'll draw you in, fringe magnets.
He's talking the talk, isn't
he? Is. He'll draw you in, and then deal. This is the deal.
Do you know, I watched a bit of him talking over there, and first of all, it was like you said. I think they're all on something. Did you?
Yes, they are all on something.
Hyped up, don't they?
Well, look at the EU leaders. They all. I would say Macron, Queer Starling, all of the males look camp as Christmas, right? They do. Even the ones apart from Johnson, Tony Blair did, Gordon Brown did, John Major, all of them. Do you see Starling with Trump?
I think the most masculine one were Maggie Thatcher.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. but if you look at all these people, they all are arty-farty limerick tarts. And yet the Trump thing, I think they are all on something.
Another thing I noticed is when he was talking. I mean, like I said, he does drag you in with a hypnotic talk. I mean, I'm not saying drag him in, but he was like he was doing a stand-up routine. It wasn't like anything I've ever seen before. It's like a stand-up. With little jokes and little in-jokes and
whatever team's got in.
The microphone, it was like a stand-up routine.
Whatever team's got in, it's a new team or a different team, different type of team. Because, these are highly aggressive people, yeah? And if you equate it back to what you said, that club, if you think about that, what was that vampire film where they're all sat around that table? Blade. And you look at that, you could see that meeting like that. You're going to do this, and Zelensky saying, I'm going to do that. You're going to do it. Now, to me, if I was Zelensky, I'd be wearing three bulletproof vests and because he's got nowhere to walk now because Russia hate him, and Trump, who's only been in for a month, hates him. Whatever power Trump's got, he's got the power to destroy somebody if he wants to. Well, whether the team want to or not, because all the conversation has to be is Putin. We want to get rid of Zelensky. Trump says, "No, keep him. We'll just hide him." Or I don't care. Bye, Zelensky.
It's weird, though, isn't it? When you think of all them actors that went over to see him and all that drum up about Zelensky being a hero. Well, I suppose I've just answered my own question there. Most heroes get destroyed, don't they?
Well, I mean, the fallacy is there are videos going around of loads of parties going on. Now, it might be the wealthy Ukrainians that are having the parties while the people are getting dragged off streets and thrown into vans and put them front line. There's lots of videos like that. Have you seen them? I saw a guy walking his dog. He's walking his dog and he starts running. An army guy chases him into a field. A van stops and two more army guys get out and let his dog go and carry him and throw him into the back of the van.
For what?
They're press gangs, aren't they?
What do you mean press gangs?
Well, because they can't get soldiers to go up front. Like they used to do in...
How are they going to make you fight, though? Push you with a massive stick?
Well, you're in, aren't you? Press gangs, that's what's... Well, it seems to be what's happening. They've got nobody wants to fight. I reckon if you actually... People voted for whether they should be at war or not, most of them would say no. And also over here, that's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about my in-laws coming round. And although they don't want to give money away to Ukraine, they're sort of, because they watch BBC a lot, they're anti-Putin. I'm not pro-Putin or anti-Putin.
It's all a fucking stage show.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, you don't believe that nonsense. It's the same people that told you about whatever they say is a fucking lie. The same people were telling you about this nonsense in 2020, and you didn't believe that, but yet you believe this. I don't understand how you believe that and not that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, that. Yeah. Because if I lied my ass off to you with something that potentially going to kill you, you'd probably never believe me again.
Definitely wouldn't.
Right. So, right. And if I was in a position of knowledge to be able to push this thing on you, but yet they're pushing this on you, and you're believing it. Yeah, but I saw that coverage. They bullied Zelensky. Zelensky's 3'6", and obviously Trump and that.
And he's in America.
I actually watched some of it because I find it quite. I've
It's
never watched politics.
It's the most interesting.
I find it
politics
interesting,
ever been,
right?
yeah.
I find it interesting because it is like Blade. It's like the most highly hyped up, aggressive, testosterone level men are in the room, and they're saying, "No, we're doing this," and. Anyway, but I said, you need to watch it all. What they're showing on mainstream TV over here is little snippets of them having a go at him and making him look like a child.
Yeah.
And that's BBC all over, isn't it?
Because he were giving it to them to start with. That's what made
he started it. Well, whether he started it or not, I don't know. I'm not even going to say
but
that.
But it's wrestling. That's what you're watching. Yeah. And he said this, and Hunter Biden's laptop this, and
yeah. And Hunter Biden did Leifner, and he's a crackhead.
It was interesting because the guys at work were talking about it, and it was just interesting you're in a group of people who've all been delivered the same information. They've all got slightly different viewpoints on what's going on.
Yeah.
But they're talking about a pantomime.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Oh, no, she did. Oh, yes, she did.
Yeah. No, because he had that, and they had that evidence. But everything, all his information, including
and they keep saying
from
that,
the news. It's come
they
from
keep saying,
TV.
and Biden did that. Biden didn't do all. He couldn't even tie his own shoelaces.
Yeah.
And nobody ever says anything.
But all his information comes from the TV.
Yeah.
So we're all digesting what they fucking want us to digest.
It is an odd state of affairs how people get dragged in so easily. I mean, that's why it's good to watch from afar when you see these things on YouTube that you don't get drawn into it. It is like watching but that kind of thing, Blade, in it, where you've got that all-powerful guys in the room, you know, that can basically do what they want.
Which is what we did from 2020. In fact, you just observed everything unfold in front of us.
And since I can't remember.
Before that, but that was the biggest thing we've actually watched unfold in front of us. Yeah. I remember watching. We were at Lou's friend's wedding in Jamaica. No, she wanted to do it. That was it.
Jamaica. No, did it on her own accord.
When we were over, the Boston shenanigans happened.
Yeah,
and I watched it on live TV. Watched it unfold on American TV, which is crazier than our TV.
Our TV ain't crazy; it just constantly lies.
Yeah,
American TV's crazy. And it lies.
And lies. Yeah. But I watched it all unfold, obviously thinking, well, this is bollocks. And just watched it unfold, and this and that. And, and imagine you're in Jamaica, it was boiling. And I didn't want to leave the room because I was just watching this shenanigans unfold.
But I mean,
just observing bullshit.
That guy that did that Boston bombing, that was phenomenal work, wasn't it? It's sort of unargued against that. You can't even argue about it.
They don't even talk about it enough for it to be a real event, if you know what I mean. It would be discussed more, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That guy in wheelchair going. They made a film about him as well.
Yeah, I know they did. Well, they were smiling when they were wheeling him off.
Yeah. It would have bled out.
That's what you do in a... No, that's what... Well, no, not necessarily, but that's what you do when...
and you showed him doing circuits, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was
that's what you do when... Anyway... Strange, but apparently, right? This is what again going back to that they're having like parties on beach and stuff like that in Ukraine. Apparently, in New York, there were loads of protests, loads of people walking with banners. Ukrainians apparently with loud horns and stuff. But if they cared that much, wouldn't they be on front line?
Yeah.
Why are they on front line? Why are they in America? It's dead easy to say America should send money. Fuck off back there. Fight.
I don't want to send any money to anywhere.
No. I mean, I remember being in a lift, right, on holiday. Me, Mrs. and Nipper. Or it might just be me and Mrs. Nipper might have been out doing something. But anyway. And two people got in, a guy and his missus. And they said, oh, where are you from? I said, England. Oh, we love England. Where are you from? Ukraine. All right. You send the money. And I just stared at them like that. And they realised that I wasn't fucking into what... I didn't love them, right?
Yeah.
Why are you here on holiday and your country's at fucking war?
Apparently.
How does that work? They're press ganging people and you're here on holiday. You can walk. You can carry a rifle.
Yeah.
If that's how bad it is. Like that guy that came to that talk that time, he said, I'm going to have a look at this. I can't remember his name now. And he flew to Poland and got training to Kiev. And he said there were no happening.
Yeah. The guy was at our gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But then think, right? If Russia invaded England, what would you do? Would you fight? I wouldn't try and fight them. Just wait for a new regime. Wait for a new regime to take over.
It depends. Again, like that guy that tweeted, wouldn't it be terrible? Everyone says, "Oh, Putin would be terrible." What? He'd lock people up for praying outside an abortion clinic, or he'd
let horse people go to BAFTAs.
Yeah. Let an horse woman go to BAFTAs. Maybe she should have been at horse at your show. Or they send 2 coppers out to knock on a woman's door for saying a Labour councillor should resign.
Yeah, exactly. Was it going to be any worse?
Is it any worse than that? Or Richard Dior, who can't even have a trial, proper trial?
I think I pledged my allegiance to the Russian flag.
Well, maybe.
No,
I don't think I'll go that far.
I'm joking. They're all as bad as one another, aren't they? Like we said, they're all in the same fucking club. Because they're all willing to lie and not grass each other.
Donald Trump mentioned Federal Reserve. I don't like that. He won't mention Federal Reserve. I mean, he's for freedom and stuff like that. But
no, he said he was going to. Didn't he said he was going to go to Fort Knox and
he's going to go Fort Knox.
Live stream it.
Yeah, of course he's going to Fort Knox it. Yeah, you know, a lot of this is going to fizzle out. A bit like Elon Musk when he said he's going to release all COVID. Shit! I've said it now. All
just beep it out.
Files, DIVC files,
JFK files.
Yeah.
Anything that's got files,
mail files,
anything that's got files in it seems to be bollocks to me.
Yeah, especially when they're all redacted and there's black lines through them all. Yeah. Pointless. But anyway, all these people were protesting and in New York saying they should, because he stopped funding the war, if you like. And then he's flown over to Europe and they've all put their hands up his ass and give him a nice little pat. And apparently Britain's going to give him another £3 billion.
There's people sleeping on the streets.
I know.
All over England.
I'll tell you now, right? If they had a vote now, whether we should keep funding this nonsense, right?
Yeah,
I would have a positive guess that it'd be no. And it won't be difficult to do nowadays because you could do, if they can send an emergency number through your phone, right? Text an alarm. They can send you. Do you think we should give any more money to Ukraine? Vote through your phone.
Yeah,
I might actually even partake in that one.
Yeah. They'll just swindle numbers anyway at the other end.
Yeah, like they did with...
if you can get 90% of England to have a jibby jabber, they can definitely get us all to fucking vote for something.
Yes.
I've always said that. That's how the country should run. Like they do with bloody Pop Idol, where you ring in a vote which knobhead you want to win or whatever. Serious events.
They're actually highly talented individuals.
Serious events we could all vote through like you said, through some kind of phone system.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to war? Everyone would say no, fuck off.
Yes.
You weird little bastards in your weird little dark suits.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. We don't want to go to war.
But like the people that are coming, I'll use the people that are coming over at Channel. That apparently they're saying there's 1,000 people a day coming over at Channel. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true.
I heard that at work.
I don't think they're all coming over.
Weather's getting better.
Weather's, I don't know whether they're all coming over on boats because English Channel's very busy and 1,000 people, that might be 10 boats a day. There's going to be a few disappear, I'm afraid, under a ferry. No doubt about that.
But like we've said before, it's all been let to happen because it's happening in every country.
Right? So why don't they just put them on a bigger boat, take them back to France and drop them on the beach there and say it's your problem? Send them back to wherever these people have come from. Let's get them back to them countries where they belong.
But also,
go on.
Missing the bigger picture, right? Even if there's all these people coming everywhere, whatever, it's still our fault because we destroyed the countries in a lot of cases. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, I think
I don't even know where they're coming from, Chris.
No, it's happening every.
It doesn't say all these people are coming from. I don't know, Brighouse, for instance. You know what I mean? They're not coming. It doesn't say where they're coming from.
No, they're just coming. There's thousands of them.
There's thousands of them,
and you need to be fucking wound up about it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. There's thousands of them, and they're causing loads of crime, which I'm sure they are, because you're letting the worst of the worst in.
But it's been used in it. It's been used and exaggerated. I would imagine. If I'm honest.
Again, every country's going through the same thing.
Yeah, all in lockstep. How does that work?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to play this Queer Starling. I've got a couple of videos on audio to play. I'm going to play this Queer Starling talking about why you let Jimmy
obviously knew
Savile
about
off.
the investigation into Jimmy Savile, but I thought at that time that there simply wasn't the evidence as the testimony simply wasn't compelling. Also, Savile did have a great standing with people, and so the threshold for any action taken was always going to be higher. And some of the claims felt slightly frivolous. We felt that threshold wasn't met at that time.
Yep, and threshold not met.
I don't believe him.
Funnily enough, I don't believe him either, Chris.
What year was that then? That would have been 2010, 2011?
No, it would probably it was after he died, so I reckon it probably
2010? Did he
no,
die?
after that. I think he died 2012, something like that, didn't he?
No, it would be before that fight, because...
Let's have a look. I think he died 2011-ish.
I'm only saying because I knew where I was. I was living in Leeds at the time, and they had his body in the hotel, Georgia Hotel.
Oh, Jimmy Savile?
Yeah. And I was living in Leeds town centre.
Right. 2011. October 29th. October 29th, 2011.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He was born 31st of October. Is that what's 31st of October? Is that Halloween?
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, he was born on Halloween night.
Keir Starmer's not aged. He's aged pretty drastically since then, hasn't he?
Yeah, it looks like a sack of shit. Well, he didn't look that good there, but he looked like a...
No, but he looked young there.
Yeah, it looks like he's been through something, doesn't
He looked a lot younger than 10 years, 15 years ago, 14 years ago.
Yeah. He's a bit like that drawing you've done of John on that ticket. It looks like he's just, like when them boy bands do comebacks. He looks like that on that ticket.
He's jealous.
Mark Devlin said, how come I look 20 years older than John?
I don't know why John's picture came out like
I thought Mark would look at it on upside. So I said Botox. And he sent me a picture of John's head, right, on like a body of Rambo. So I sent back Rambo, and then he put John Hambo. Yeah. But yeah, so
he's an old photo.
Yeah, so that video, there, him saying there wasn't enough evidence. Well, how come? More or less, as soon as he died, or not long after that must have been around when all this evidence were coming out. So he's probably only talking 3 or 4 years after he was part of that process, and all of a sudden there's loads of evidence. He's got all the money to throw at an investigation, and he didn't do it. He was just lying there, wasn't
he? Yeah, blatantly lying. Just like that video you showed where he said he was slagging off Donald Trump, and then the next one is like, "And we'll do anything we can just to be friends with Donald Trump." It's like,
are you friends? Yeah,
tell some truth.
Jeremy Corbyn's one of my best friends. The next interview, are you friends with Jeremy Corbyn? No.
Yeah, that was a good one. I saw. He's done it numerous times, hasn't he?
Yeah,
done it loads of times.
Yeah,
we'll let these people.
We'll let these people do whatever they're in charge of. We'll let these people be in charge and be the face. I mean, all these people like Donald Trump and Queer Starling and Rishi Sunakers and Slumdog Millionaire and Lying Bastard Boris and Tony B. Liar and Gordon Boz Eyes Brown and David Cameron, all these people. Yeah, we've been voted in by the British people. No, you haven't. You got about 20% of vote in reality. British people didn't vote you in.
So 80% of people don't actually want you in or like you.
No. And people say, well, you should vote. Yeah, but that's the point, isn't it? The point is that the system's fucking rigged.
And yes, it's the same system. Nothing ever changes.
Yeah. Nigel Farage will save us.
No foreign policies ever change, do they? Ever. No matter which knobhead's in.
No.
They just, rattle around with a bit of bullshit and then lie the way through like the pensions thing, the heating thing for old people, all that stuff. And
it's a bit like, say, Jimmy Savile, right? I mean, I never really took any notice of him, to be honest with you, but it always looked odd, didn't it? Running around with that stupid shell suit on with slip-on shoes.
Yeah, he's creepy.
And a cigar. And he ain't a good-looking bloke either.
No.
So,
he wasn't funny.
I don't understand what
you weren't a particularly good interviewer.
No.
He had one good show. Jim Fix-It was pretty good for kids to watch, to be fair. When you were a kid, I used to watch it.
Now you look back at it and think, creepy.
But there were only 3 fucking channels, so no else to watch anyway.
Yeah,
but
I didn't watch it.
He want a personality, wasn't he?
No.
He wasn't a magnetic personality. He just seemed like a creepy weirdo.
Yeah. It's an odd one. I've got a video of Nancy Pelosi as well. Talking about how they smear people very interesting. She says, just
The
as it is,
difference
really.
is we don't engage in the politics of personal destruction. The fact is that if we just talk about the issues, for example, I think it would be interesting to people in these districts to know that the speaker wants to take away the guarantee of Medicare. So I think talking about issues is where we should be. What is the difference in one person being speaker than another? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident. But I think I'm worth the trouble, very frankly. I love the fray. I'm not disrespectful of people's views. I respect any positive things that people want to say, or even negative, as long as it's constructive.
Fucking hell! Do you think she realised she'd said too much at that point? Because
I think so.
Her eyes changed, and she started to kind of roll it back a little bit, didn't she?
I mean, she's one of these that, like, her husband has made tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, on decisions that they made when they were in power, or she made when they were in power. That's her husband. Can you remember, he were that gay guy were in his room and smacked him round the head or something like that.
Yeah,
he smacked her husband round the head, but he wasn't having a gay relationship with him.
No, he just had him in the house. Had him in his bedroom.
Yeah. You're just buying him a drink.
Again, as well, I look at she looks off her tits.
Yeah.
Didn't she? She looks high as a kite to me.
Mm.
Why is she telling everybody?
Kamala Harris, she would say, wouldn't she?
Mm. I think you're right.
Why would he say that? Why would he? I don't know if she were actually answering a question that's what the media do, making out that they've nothing to do with it, type of thing. But that is exactly what, if you think about what happened to, say, Richard, Britain's worst troll. He was not a fucking troll, is he? He's a reporter.
No. Yeah.
He's not a troll. You know? If you were a troll, he'd be still hanging outside their house, annoying them. That's what a troll does. He did his film, moved on.
Mm.
That's it. That's not a troll. Otherwise, the BBC would be trolls, wouldn't they? Or ITV.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
So they smear you. That's it. You get smeared. Everyone runs for cover. Nobody wants to back you up. Leave you on your own. And that's what they want to do. They want to single you out. A bit like when you see that limping impala on a nature program being chased by a lion. They single it out, don't they?
Mm.
And they keep biting it to weaken it. But yeah, that's Nancy Pelosi.
She was smiling as she was saying that bit. And then it looked to me like she was smiling with glee.
How can anybody believe these people? I don't understand it, me.
No.
I honestly do not understand how anybody can believe these people.
No.
How anybody can say, again, like people who watch BBC and talk about Putin as the bad guy, and he probably is. I don't know. I don't really care. Yeah. But they think our leaders are like, they think Keir Starmer's a good guy. You know, I know people listening don't, but I mean,
what I was saying though,
I'm talking about NPCs here.
When I was listening to fellas talking about it at work, and it just as an observation, so you got 4 or 5 people, and this is just like a microcosm of everywhere, every work. They've all got a slightly different opinion on what they've seen, etc., and all getting quite animated about it. I think this, I think that, which is, fair enough. But look at the energy. Just think of England, the energy wasted on discussing
nonsense,
fucking clown show.
Yeah,
we're discussing it, fair enough. But people are getting passionate and angry and upset about this stuff, and it's just all bollocks. Like you said, there's nothing you can really do, to be fair about it, really, other than say no when they try and make you do something.
No, there probably is something you can really do, but they're not willing to do it. Just like they weren't willing to do it in 2020. They'd wear a mask and bang pots and pans on the doorstep and grass people up for going out for a walk and sitting on a park bench, or take piss out you because you weren't having a tap, or make you feel, or try to. I mean, obviously, most people listening here didn't give a shit, but some people had to go to places of work where they were belittled and things like that for not having a jab. And that is the same mentality as those 4 guys, because they'll have all been having the same conversations around in 2020 about, them bastards that are having jab or not wearing a mask, or he didn't come out and clap pots and pans. I mean, if you just listen to that, right, that neighbour of yours, why aren't they out banging pots and pans? What the if you think of how stupid that is,
I know.
Think about how, even just that alone, how brain dead they are.
Felt like throwing a half Charlie over the wall.
Neighbours went out banging pots and pans. Yeah, you're fucking right, you idiot.
Yeah. He's a fucking idiot.
What a weird world we live in. It's I don't think there's any hope for some of these people, to be honest with you. Where was that video that the one video that I wanted to play? Yeah, I don't know if I can play this. Gonna share screen. Might be a shared screen. Can you hear that?
No.
Dan Andrews. I mean, he's one of them people. Dan Andrews in
Australia.
Yeah. He was one of them people, weren't he?
Yeah. Not violent, but...
Yeah, he was... yeah. You're probably better to hear this now.
I can't hear it far.
Why can't you hear that?
I could hate this guy.
It's probably not a bad thing not hearing it, to be fair.
Yeah. Dan Andrews.
Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to hear that. Don't know why.
No, weird.
Yeah, all right then. We won't try that one. It took me too long to download it. I might try to, actually. Just to wind. These are some of the videos that I'm going to use on Saturday. Rise Above. When we're talking with them guys, because I think it's good to. Well, it's not good to look back, but it's good to have another perspective on it.
Well, 5 years in now.
It's 5 years this month. 5 years, Chris.
It's flown by, hasn't it? I think it's definitely
they knew
some
that.
cosmic thing with the time speed up, I think, personally.
They knew that. They knew that it was going to go very quickly. They knew that people would forget. Like, nobody's still talking about it. It's the biggest thing. There's nothing else to talk about. Nothing. That is the only thing anybody should be talking about.
The more we can keep people who are not vaccinated away from those who are, given that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, then the safer we will be. It won't be forever. It won't be enduring. It is based on science. We do have a couple of hurdles to get over, though, and that is exactly what benefit do boosters provide?
Me knocking you out.
When will they be rolled out? What's the response of the community to that? Will boosters remain outside the formal green tick process? Or in order to get your status to be fully vaccinated on the AIR database, it may well be that a third shot becomes just as important in a formal sense as the first and second. So we just have to wait and see.
Another lying bastard.
Another lying bastard. These people, man.
Yeah. Little rat weasel.
That weasel there. That horse face getting a day mud. Somebody put a comment on a mention that Melinda Gates was Dame Melinda Gates, Dame Melvin Gates. And they said, "Oh no, sorry, lads, but it was great to find. I didn't know Sir Bill Gates was knighted, but Melinda isn't." And I said, anyway, I knew she was because I've done quite a lot of research on them too that I haven't published yet. But I sent them the link to it. It's even on a Wikipedia page that she was given a damehood, and it actually says the same as Angelina Jolie got.
For what? What's Angelina Jolie? What, been in fucking Tomb Raider?
No, for philanthropy.
Right.
Saving kids. Yeah. And being a crackhead. Ex-crackhead.
Was she crackhead?
I think she was an heroin addict or something like that. Wasn't she, I might be wrong there, but I think she had drug problems anyway.
I'm not going to judge anyone for their addictions.
No. I'm surprised you haven't cracked a bottle of witch piss up.
I'm having a few nights off, believe it or not.
A few nights off. You say that like it's like some sort of, health kick.
It is a health kick.
You're not saying you're never going to drink again. It's a health kick, Chris.
I'm
And a shock. And a shock, by the way.
No,
I bet that brings you out in a cold sweat when I just even said that to you, didn't it?
Yeah, I won't be saying that. No way. I love a glass of wine. Now, why you got me talking about it? I'm having a night off.
Well,
licking my lips now.
Yeah, you can hear that cork going. All right, should we call that a day?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the shop.
Yeah, he's gonna go get his straw out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, just because we're doing the Rise Above on Saturday, I'm going to release this whole podcast out this weekend. We're recording this on Tuesday night. On the 4th of March, and we're actually doing a podcast. Our guest at it this week is Andrew Johnson, who we want to talk to for quite a while. Another one of them guys we used to listen to quite a lot, going back many years. He's been around doing this for a long time, a bit like John Hamer and Nick Colostrom and all these people that have been around. It's good to catch up with them and get their perspective.
I've talked to.
Yeah. Mike Williams, obviously Mark Devlin, people like that. And to be fair, I like doing the podcasts with guests on, but I haven't published any research for a long time. I don't want to be typecast, Chris. I prefer to be typecast as a researcher than a podcast host. I'm not getting lazy. I'm getting too busy. That's the problem. Getting too busy. So, yeah, too bloody busy doing stuff. And not enough. Well, actually, I am doing a lot of research. I mentioned to you, I've been off on a tangent on a few stuff, like with George Bush. Well, not George Bush, but the Bush family. Let's call it. Very interesting how stuff turn out. Like he's got a great grandfather who was a Viking king called Rollo. Right, I love you, Rollo. That was on Grange Hill, though.
Grange Hill, yeah. Roland, yeah.
I love you, Roland. He's got a Viking king. With that black girl that used to say that, didn't she?
Yeah.
I don't think she. I think I've made that up. I don't think she said that.
She loved him, but she's Roland.
Roland. Me and my mates used to say it when we were when we were partying. I love you, Roland. Anyway. He had one of his ancient grandparents, George Bush, all the Bush family, Bush kangaroos, and they had this Rollo. He was given the dukedom of Normandy, and to stop him fighting because he was a Viking who was coming in and blitzing the place. So the king gave him Normandy to stop him fighting. That was part of the deal, a bit like the Ukraine deal now. That's what I mean. Yeah. It's a bit
same shit, isn't it?
Same shit, yeah. And the year he gave it him on was 911. Yeah. So George Bush, who was president on 9/11, his great whatever. I'll work out how many grandfathers it is. Was given the dukedom of Normandy in 9/11. And not only that, Rollo, he was called, I forget his name now, Halfhargensson or something like that, this Viking were called. But he had a nickname. Some of them are called like the Warrior or the Killer or something like that.
Raven and Wolf.
Yeah. Well, Raven's a good one, actually.
Yeah, that was one, wasn't it?
I'll come on to that in a sec. He was called the Walker. Right. Now, I know people will be thinking, fucking hell, he didn't twig with you because you obviously hadn't looked at these guys. But George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you said it, I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I know you. I knew you knew it then. And the W in W is Walker.
Right.
And he was called Rollo the Walker Halfhargensson or something like that. That was his name.
Which just tells you that they're very aware of that.
Well, I would say, what, in Skull and Bones? Probably.
To use his name again.
Yeah. They're not using his name again because he's part of the Walker family.
Right.
They don't call Walker, won't like christened, but it's part of a surname of some. Generally, what happens is they'll call somebody a name, then they'll have like a middle name that is really a surname as opposed to having a double barrel name. He weren't called Walker Bush as a surname type of thing with a hyphen in the middle, but they'll christen the kids the surname.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
they mean there?
Yeah, it's not, but it's not like William, is it, or something? Walker's pretty.
No.
But what I mean is that they must know that they've got that in their heritage.
Yeah. Get rid of that. Can Jimmy Savile staring at me?
Creeping you out.
Yeah, creeping me out. But that's interesting. Going back to the Raven, I think it was either John Dinsmore who have done Densmore of the Doors. A lot of these are blended into one. I've done that many in the last 4 or 5 months, and or Morrison, Jim Morrison, the Ravens, and Ray Manzarek was in a band called Rick and the Ravens,
right?
And Jim Morrison was. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? What's happening? The stuff I found of them is interesting. Going back to George W. Bush, when Iraq War was started, he said it's going to be a great crusade, and he had to change it, didn't he? I remember him saying it, and it were a big hoo-ha of him having to change it because he made out it were a crusade. But you see, their ancestors, one of his ancestors, Sir Such and Such, was killed on the crusade. You know, they were in the crusades. You can see it there. A lot of them are killed for witchcraft. It's fucking weird, man. One of Eminem's ancestors brought the law in Salem to execute witches. Right, he was like the head legal guy in that.
Yeah.
It was called Increase Mather. Right name, that, innit? Not Mathers. Mather. They changed the name in the 1700s to Mathers, which is where he gets his name from. But anyway, and then John Densmore of the Doors, the drummer, one of his great-great-grandmas was executed as a fucking Salem witch.
Again, what was that? More infighting?
Well, that's again
ego psycho infighting.
So you see these things and you think, you are actually witnessing this Matrix realm, this screensaver or whatever it is,
repeating itself.
Yeah, but just technologically, if you call it that, more advanced, if you like. Whereas they're using swords now, they're using laser beams, for instance. It's just
the more technology we lose, the more we drift away from witchcraft and what people really used to believe.
Yes.
And what these people probably still do believe in and carry out.
Maybe they were really scared of witches because they could see through them. That's why they wanted to.
Well, you think of an actual witch, even the like cartoon version of it. You've got someone living in a wood with a cauldron and a cat. Were they just herbalists? I don't know what pretend to know, but
well, the Wicked Witch of the West had a royal ancestry and all.
What do you mean? The woman who
played her in The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
She had a proper royal ancestry. Right. And as did the guy who wrote it. Can't remember, we covered the guy who wrote it in one of the Huxley movies, docu, whatever they are.
Can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he went to the same, went in the same military base as Hunter S. Thompson or something like that. It was something like that, yeah. Or he went to the same one, college or something, at the same time. Same MK Ultra college.
He got his brain fried by the same doctor.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to at some point my research will come to an end. Did you see that email from Mark yesterday? I sent him over some stuff on what the fuck were it on now? Eurythmics, Annie Lennox, because it came up in my George Bush research. How mad's that? George Bush is related. Some of his ancestors are the Earls of Lennox. Right. And so this is that. When people say to you, can you show me how to do research? How do you show them that? Because what that did then triggered me and thought, I must relate to Annie Lennox. Yeah. So you know what that led me to? I went back through and she'd put a tweet on saying all her ancestors were all these earls, right, and what have you. But the Earl of Lennox was given to the Stuart family.
Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart were her Eurythmics part. And then I
They were
looked at his
married. They were
thing.
married, weren't they?
No, they weren't married, no.
They went out with each other, though.
No, I don't think they did.
I thought they did.
I think there were always talk of that, but he's been married. Anyway, I'm not even interested in that part. But he was he said he was a distant relative of the Dukes of Northumberland. Distant relative.
I would say clearly a manufactured band as well. Eurythmics, thinking about it now, and they were selling the almost like the female David Bowie version, really, weren't they?
Yes, yeah, but she's proper. I mean, I call her woke Annie because she's proper woke, isn't she? She's proper.
I don't know anything about it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, I don't, but I know she is all the global climate warming bollocks, I think, and stuff like that. She married an Israeli guy as well, so she's into all that side of it as well. And it's, these are heroes. These are your heroes.
Yeah.
I didn't find anything out on David Bowie, though. Interesting.
No.
Find out on David Bowie. I think some of these people haven't got the bloodline.
Right.
Or bloodlines, whatever. I think some of these people, it doesn't run thick through. Now, maybe I'm not saying they're not bought and paid for. I don't know, but
It might have been one of those rogue children that they keep an eye on.
Yeah, a talented one that slipped through the net, if you like. I'm sure there are some of them as well.
No, but like we discussed before, where they don't think they're
illegitimate.
Part of the bloodline.
Yeah,
it could be that one of them.
Yeah,
even though we've kind of, I think I invented that.
I don't think he invented that because that is a possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, like I said, they've slipped through the net. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I hope you enjoy this. The podcast's going to be the other way around this week. We're going to release this one first, and then the conversation we have with Andrew will be on now after this one. So, hope you enjoy that chat. I can't say if you join us for part 2 because it's all together. There you go, this week. But we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. If we see you down at Rise Above, say hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. All right, just a slight interlude on that ending there. We're going to release this onto YouTube, but we're going to release an edited version on YouTube because after recording with Andrew, we said a few things after the first hour that probably a bit too touchy for YouTube based on Richard Diol's case and the 2020 nonsense. So if you want to listen to the full podcast, go to sheepfarm.co.uk or go to Podomatic. I think the podcast is going to be over 3 hours. I'm going to release it all this week. There's no members part to this. It's a full podcast that we're releasing. So sheepfarm.co.uk, go to podcast, it's all there. Or you can go to Podomatic and it'll be all on Podomatic as well. So we'll see you soon.
Bingo. Goodbye.
All right, welcome to this Sheep Farm podcast. This is episode 218. I think I've got that right, Chris.
Yeah, 218. Yeah.
Generally get it wrong. Even though I hate being wrong. Inside joke, that. We're going to try and put this out on YouTube, but one of the subjects about the nonsense in 2020, which we'll have to sort of talk around if we want to get it on YouTube, and we'll discuss that at the end. I know if I don't think it's going to go on there, I will take it out and put it onto sheepfarm.co.uk where you can listen to the full episode there, or Podomatic where you better listen to the full episode. We're going to release the full episode. It won't be in 2 halves this week because we're doing the live show in Bournemouth on Saturday with the guys from Rise Above and Mark Devlin, where we're doing a talk down there. One of those. It's a long journey, that Bournemouth. Long journey, but it'll be good. It's about 250 people going. And be good to meet people down there. All right, then. Today's guest, we've been listening to for a long, long time. Probably, I don't know, well over 10 years, I would say.
Definitely over 10 years.
Yeah, well over 10 years. 15 years, probably, more likely. Shows his age now. Welcome, Andrew Johnson.
Thanks for inviting me onto your your podcast, your prestigious podcast.
Prestigious, I don't know about that, mate. But it's good to have another. There must be something in water, or watter, as we say in Yorkshire.
Aye.
It's good to have another Yorkie on.
Aye, yeah.
Where are you from, Andrew? Where do you live, Andrew? Where are you from?
Well, I don't live in Yorkshire anymore. I was born in Keighley, and I grew up in Skipton. Yeah. But I kind of I was a traitor and went to Lancashire to university. And then I went down south after I finished university. I went to work in rugby. So I haven't lived in Yorkshire for a long time, but I did have regular trips back there when my mum and dad were still alive and stuff, and my sister was still alive. So, it was. I still like to go back there. I went back there with my son in July. So yeah, obviously never forget your roots, do you? And Yorkshire has something special about it.
Yeah.
And the Yorkshire Dales particularly is a very beautiful area. Very very special area, the Yorkshire Dales. If anybody's not been there, I recommend a visit.
Is there going to be any Yorkshire people left to enjoy it? That's the thing.
Well, I hope so. Pretty resilient Yorkshire folk, and
it seems like there's a takeover happening where the exodus of indigenous human beings from England and Great Britain in general are being taken out basically by an orchestrated event across the world. It's not just in this country. And they're inserting a new, I call it a peasant class or a worker class. That's what it seems like. Over the next 100 years, I think there's going to be a big change.
I think that's happening. And I've noticed it around here as well. In Derby and Nottingham, which I live in between those two cities now, and there are a lot more. There seem to be a lot less indigenous folk around.
Yes.
In proportion.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about population. I mean, like it's said that officially that the population of the UK is about 64 million, I think. And then I heard something. Maybe you guys have heard this as well. I heard something fairly recently. If you look at the food consumption, how much food is actually consumed, if you add up all what the supermarket's selling, that would be eaten by a population of about 80 million. Right. So they reckon that the unofficial population of the UK is about 80 million, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? In light of what you just said.
Yeah, especially when the indigenous ones seem to be dropping like flies. Especially after 2020 and 2021. And the nonsense that went there, which was probably all part of the agenda as well. But before we crack on and I forget, I'd like to thank Brendan for putting us together, introducing us. I spoke to him on the phone. I know you spoke to him on the phone as well. And so, I'd like to thank him. I think he's from Dewsbury.
He's a good chap.
Yeah. So, hello, Brendan. Yeah. So, we're going to discuss a few points today. I know there's loads of stuff. We'll probably end up going off in various tangents, no doubt. But I'd like to recap the 9/11 information that you basically brought into this country from Judy Wood. Am I right there in thinking that?
Well, you could make that argument, certainly. That my story was that what happened was I started looking at 9/11 in 2004, really 2003, that sort of time frame, and I started working for the Open University at that point. I was just part-time tutor, and I ended up getting involved with this Scholars for 9/11 Truth group, which was basically just an internet forum, and got involved with that. It was basically late 2005, at very end of 2005, and we had these two guys, Jones and Fetzer. Jones was a PhD physicist from Brigham Young University, and Fetzer was Duluth, Minnesota. He was like a philosophy professor or something.
Jim Fetzer. Jim Fetzer,
yeah. He's still knocking about.
He did loads of Sandy Hook stuff, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
He got him into a lot of trouble.
He did get into a lot of trouble. And I started off and assumed these two guys were legit. But basically what it turned out is that Scholars for 9/11 Truth group was basically a honeypot for pseudo-intellectuals like me and people who are real intellectuals not like me.
Might be doing yourself a disservice there, mate.
Well, I'm talking about people with PhDs. I don't have any advanced degrees. I've just got sort of BSc, which I never done masters or anything like that.
Where have they got us lately, though, Andrew?
Well, indeed, exactly, and that's a whole other conversation. But these two guys basically wrote me into this group, and I realised that they were pushing a fake story. So, in other words, they disagreed with the official story of 9/11. This is why I wanted to just mention this in passing. Really, they disagreed with the official story of 9/11, but then they were putting out this story about bombs and thermite in the World Trade Center towers. And I bought into that, initially. And then one of the other people that was involved in that scholars group was Dr. Judy Wood. And the other guy was Dr. Morgan Reynolds, who used to work for George Bush's administration as an economist. And I got to a point, really, I thought, how the hell have I got to talk to these people? So, and I did, and I did, and we collaborated over a period of about 2 or 3 years, Dr. Judy Wood and I, and she was doing a lot of very scientific research, really, because she had my background is in software engineering. As I say, I've never published any research, in an official journal or anything like that. And some people mistakenly have called me Professor Johnson or Dr. Johnson, but that's not appropriate because I'm neither of those things. And so, I got involved with that group. Dr. Judy Wood was involved, and then we ended up realizing this Stephen E. Jones character. He was leading us up the garden path, and we found out the reason for that was to do with energy, because Dr. Judy Wood had realized that she'd seen these energy effects in the destruction of the World Trade Center, like strange circular holes in the buildings, in the tops of the buildings, in the ground, things turning to dust in midair before they hit the ground. It's very important that people realize that the buildings turn to dust in midair before they hit the ground. And we're talking about, 236 steel columns, like 1,300 feet high, turning to dust in 8 seconds. I mean, that's not bombs. That's not nuclear devices. That's not jet fuel. It's none of those things. That's why it's really important. And of course, I didn't realize that at first. It wasn't really until 2006, and I've been looking at it for a couple of years, that I realized that Dr. Judy Wood was correct. And
I suppose your eyes see what you've been. Your eyes see only the level that you've been trained to see, don't they?
To a degree, and Dr. Wood pointed out very astutely, that you get all this propaganda coming in through your ears saying Osama bin Laden, and then it was listen to all those explosions in the building, bang, 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 it must be bombs. And it wasn't. It was neither of those things. It wasn't Osama bin Laden. It wasn't planes. It wasn't bombs. And that became. It's still really important. And Dr. Judy Wood started this court case, and I got involved with helping to prepare some of the documents for that, even though it was filed in the Southern District of New York's court. It didn't go anywhere. It took about 2 years. But this Jones guy and his group, and this architects and engineers for 9/11 group, which is still knocking about, and it's still promoting the same disinformation. It's still promoting the same disinformation as it was then, and they're talking about thermite still. They're not talking about Hurricane Erin. Hurricane Erin started as a tropical storm on the 1st of September, moves toward Bermuda, did a bit of damage in Bermuda on the 7th of September 2001. Then it traveled it for 4 days in a straight line, and rocks up off the coast of New York just before 9/11 started to happen, as it were. Stays there all throughout the day, 16 hours of constant wind speed, constant barometric pressure, constant temperature in New York City and blue skies. And then Hurricane Erin does a right-hand turn on the 12th of September and disappears towards Newfoundland. How many people know about that?
Yeah,
very few, because people like Richard Gage, who claims to be a 9/11 truther, don't talk about it. So I got involved in all of that, and I've written 2 books with all that information there. It's like a thumbnail sketch of it, which I wrote over a period of about 4 or 5 years, longer actually, and you can download those as PDFs from checktheevidence.com, and you can hear that whole story of how I got involved in 9/11, how I got caught up in that scholars group. And eventually, what's not in the books, because it happened after I'd written the second book, is I ended up on a podcast with Richard Gage. This was not quite a couple of years ago, Truth Summit with Elsa Scheider, and that got deleted off YouTube, that video, but it's still available on Rumble and stuff. And I confronted Gage, and he claimed, that he hadn't said these things about Dr. Judy Wood. He hadn't accused her of being a witch. And I've got a recording of him saying it, and it's just like these people that come up, they like believe their own BS. It's like it's like they can't actually, they don't know that they're actually lying. Yeah,
you've already caught him on a lie there, so it kind of discredits anything else, doesn't it? Really,
that's right, and So I was actually, I was respectful to the guy. I called him sir and stuff like that, but he wouldn't admit that he's misleading people, and he's still doing it. He's still doing it. And the importance of it, and why I'm so passionate about it, is because what happened on 9/11 involved a technology which would make fossil fuels obsolete. It would allow us to travel through space, all of that, and that's how it's connected into the sort of the UFO field, as it were. And we can see, for example, in the effects of 9/11, evidence which is the same or very, very similar to what the evidence that was created by John Hutchison, this Canadian experimental physicist, where he's warping metals, he's making things fly in the air, he's getting anomalous radiation readings, he's getting one element changing into another, like iron turning into steel turning into iron. Those aren't elements, by the way, but this sort of thing, and tritium coming about, and all those events all those things were seen in 9/11, and we know for a fact that Los Alamos National Laboratories had sent Colonel John Alexander to visit John Hutchison in 1983, and he was working with him for 4 months. And it's pretty clear that Alexander was familiar with the effects that John was creating: levitation, metal, melting with no heat, all kinds of stuff like that. So we know that Los Alamos was aware of this technology over 40 years ago, and they turned it into a weapon system. And that's another of my big things that I always talk about when on platforms like this, as it were. All these UFO speakers now, we've had all these drones in the US, and we've had this whistleblower saying that he retrieved a crashed UFO, the egg, this Jake Barber, and they say, oh, we've got this technology. Hardly ever do they talk about this technology being taken and turned into a weapon system, which is what it's been done. Stephen Greer, who's a big disclosure advocate, I've got a whole chapter about him in one of my books. He talks about them, back engineering UFO technology to create free energy devices and stuff. Does he talk about them back engineering it and turning it into a weapon system that was used on 9/11? No. And he was confronted about this in 2015 by a guy that I know, and I've got a recording of that. And somebody, this chap who's called Alan, he asked him a direct question about the events of 9/11, and he just he did all this hand waving, and he didn't talk about energy weapons. And then right at the end, he says, "Oh, but I've known about what you just said since the day it happened." And he slipped that in right at the end. So in other words, I'm convinced that people like Greer are knowingly covering up the use of this technology. They're knowingly covering it up. It's not just that that's their ego, or they just forgotten about it, or they don't know about it. They know, and they're actively covering it up.
Well, when you see, you go back to the buildings. When you see the buildings coming down, once you realise it isn't a conventional explosion, for argument's sake, then you've got to see it just disintegrating in front of your eyes, turn into dust.
I remember seeing that, Dom, even before I was on board with it. The girders vanishing as they just drift down and turn to dust. But I was thinking, as you were talking, Andrew, do you think that you could go over one hurdle and say that the 9/11 thing was a conspiracy, but then you're going into a different level if you talk about energy weapons and moving hurricanes out here? You're going into a level of, I suppose, conspiracy that they just do not want you to go into. So you're just not allowed to discuss it at any level at all.
That's one of those things that we discuss, Chris, that, at the top table, wherever the top table is, there are several things that are on there that you can't discuss. Yeah. And we won't fight over these things either, because they're just there.
Energy weapons can't be discussed.
Everything else, you've got free reign. You can bomb shit out of Gaza, have Ukraine war, but it doesn't matter that. These
energy weapons can't be discussed because we're going to be using them for forest fires in LA.
Yeah.
In the future. It's true, isn't it? Is that the reason why?
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point just to dwell on for a minute, because a lot of people have sent me pictures of these toasted cars.
Yes.
which was one of the points that Dr. Judy Wood, emphasised and found in the evidence that she researched with these cars that were upside down. The back end looks brand new, shiny paintwork, and the front end's complete toast and melted away. What causes that? And some people say that there were similar things happened in Lahaina and Paradise in California and the recent LA fires and stuff. And we were both a bit skeptical at first as to what had been done. In terms of, it looked like heat was in use there. But I've been contacted recently by some people in Hawaii, and they asked me to join this Zoom call with them. And they sort of showed me some things, and there were some witness accounts. And I do think some sort of energy weapon was used in these fires in Lahaina and in LA and at various other places. But I think it's somewhat different to how they were used in 9/11. It's not quite the same. It's some other similar version of the technology, or like a different mode of it.
It might be a spin-off technology.
or something. And so you've got to be very careful about jumping to conclusions, and that's the other thing that Dr. Judy Wood was very good at not doing. She didn't jump to conclusions. She researched what she saw for 3 years before she posted anything on the internet. So it's a very important point.
Very articulate lady.
Yeah.
And that book stands up even now. Even now, I pick it off the shelf sometimes, and I read it for a week or so, and it still resonates, even 15 years on or whatever it is from buying it.
That's right. And that's Where Did the Towers Go? And you can get that from me via checktheevidence.com. I do sell it on eBay. And there's one other seller appeared on eBay, which I don't, somewhere in China, selling the book, and I'm still trying to work out who this is. But anyway, the book is life changing for those that read it, or it's often life changing for people. I've had several people have written to me over the years and said this book changed my life, because it not only does it teach you about 9/11, but it shows you, it really deepens your or enhances your skill of critical thinking, and getting you to look at what's actually in front of you carefully, and what's not in front of you as well, and not to jump to conclusions. And
what first opened your eyes, Andrew? Did you realise there was something amiss prior to 9/11, or was it 9/11, or what? Steady build up.
Right, yeah. So how I had this sort of awakening, or whatever you want to call it, or setting me on a different path, was Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. I found that in 2003, and it happened in 2001, and it was about the UFO cover-up. And when I'd listened to these, 100 witnesses or whatever it was, 20 witnesses, explaining all these things, showing these documents related to UFOs, the Japan Airlines case in 1986, where an object pilots were watching it for an hour, flight in the sky, can't mistake that sort of thing. They had radar tracers, and that was being told by the head of the FAA, the former head of the FAA, John Callahan. I thought, I've never heard of this story. So that I knew that there was a cover-up then. I knew that the BBC and everything had covered it all up, and that must mean it was important. So I got into it from there. On 9/11, I kind of saw the buildings, and I watched them, not collapsing, but disappearing. And I thought, there's been an earthquake in New York. And I thought, no, that can't be right, because it's not in an earthquake zone. And then I was just traumatized. I didn't think about it for 18 months. And then following my discovery of the Disclosure Project, thinking, hang on, there's a cover up here. And then I found out about false flag and state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the hell's that? I've never heard of that. And I started looking into that. And then I realized the official story of 9/11 couldn't be true. And that that eventually ended up me being in the 9/11 Scholars Group.
Because regardless of what anybody thinks happened, let's just put that to one side, the justification and all that. Nobody, if anybody believes that 4 planes went off course on the same day, more or less at the same time, flew into buildings, crashed into Pennsylvania, crashed into the Harlington, then that doesn't happen, because there was something like 200 or 300 planes the year before went off track, and every time there was a fighter jet escorting them back on track. One of the famous stories was it Payne Stewart's plane, the Golfer, that they crashed it into a desert, didn't they? They watched it crash into the desert.
Yeah, I can't remember it crashed, but yeah, there was that story. But yeah, exactly. So none of the official story really adds up. And the passenger lists that they published were there were anomalies with that. Mark Conlon has done a lot of research.
Yeah, he's an excellent researcher. Isn't he?
Yeah. I don't know if he's been on your podcast.
No, he hasn't. No,
but he's gathered like I think he must have about 50 gigabytes of stuff. By my estimation, on all the plane stories, he's got a whole whacking great hard drive full just on the plane stories and how they couldn't be true. But and Dr. Wood has said it doesn't really matter whether it was a real plane that hit the building or a fake plane. When a building turns to dust, it wasn't like that. It wasn't
a plane.
By a plane crash.
Yeah.
So you can kind of just sideline the plane stories in terms of considering what happened at the World Trade Center.
But just about the rudimentary things, though, Andrew, where an aluminium plane, a fuselage with aluminium wings, will not go through steel girders.
Correct.
No matter how fast it's flying, it might smash a few windows, but it won't go through. It would have literally bounced off.
Correct. I mean, you get things like translational motion as well. So unless the plane hit the building smack on, then if it's at a very slight angle, the tail will slew round and break off and fall to the ground. And similarly, the wings should have broken off, and bits of the wings should have fallen to the ground. And none of that happened. So the physics is completely...
They found a bandana, though, and a passport.
Yes. Yeah, and they found a passport, allegedly.
Yeah.
Although, of course, that story is probably completely made up. And it becomes more and more ridiculous the more that you study it in terms of the plane stories.
I always think of that famous picture that was sent everywhere with that guy, and he kind of goes like that, and he turns around and goes, and then you see blow up behind him, and then you think, who videoed that? Some guy lying on the floor videoing that guy at that angle to capture that.
Yeah, I think that's the Evan Fairbanks footage you're thinking of, I think, and you see part of it reflected in a car windscreen. Is that the one?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy must have been on the floor when he videoed it.
Possibly, yeah. I think he was holding his camera down at his waist. I think that's how it was filmed.
Right.
And there is we do know who filmed that, and there's certain circumstances behind it. Which, I mean, Mark Conlon would be your man for that sort of thing. But I'm pretty sure the videographer was Evan Fairbanks, from my memory of it, because I looked at a lot of those clips earlier on, and there are some anomalies. And Richard D. Hall, of course, he did a great analysis, because there were these claims that the planes were CGI, and that's still knocking around. People are saying, the planes weren't real. Yeah, you're right, Andrew, because it was a CGI insert in the news broadcast. No, it wasn't the CGI insert. It wasn't that. And Richard D. Hall, he did a study which disproved the idea of CGI being inserted into news broadcasts. And that he did in 2012.
What do we think they were then that went into the buildings, if something went into the buildings? Obviously, people think that holograms and all this kind of thing. But let's just for a minute say that they were planes and they went into a building.
What they were, the best explanation, which explains the most evidence, is they were 3D volumetric image projections.
Fantastic.
That's what Mark Conlon's research and Chris Hampton, if you watch the film 9/11 Alchemy, it's on the Internet Archive, I think. I'm not sure if it's on YouTube. I think it got taken off. And by the way, anybody that's listening and wants any links, just email me at checktheevidence.com. There's a contact page, and I can send them any links, if they can't find them. So there's a whole thread of research which illustrates that this technology, has been developed, and they kept it quiet. And that's why we've had all these different stories about the plane circulating. The official story of the planes, just being hijacked, that circulated, and they needed the stories of the hijackers' phone calls, which couldn't have worked at that time with that technology. That those phone calls could not have been made.
No,
those phone calls were all faked.
My business was telecoms, right. So we actually knew that couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
At that time.
I mean, I didn't realize that until later, but I didn't think about it until later. But in the US, the mobile phones were using CDMA technology, and I think it's somewhat similar to the GSM technology that we were using in Europe, and that only works up to a speed of about 144 miles an hour to make reliable calls. So those planes, that 144 miles an hour is faster than the stall speed of those planes.
Yes.
So that the course couldn't have blasted for the length that they did.
Well, the speed they were saying the planes were flying at is 500 miles, which is impossible at that height, as we know.
It crashed,
yeah,
that's right. But I think when they made those calls, that was obviously allegedly before the crashes. Okay. So I think they weren't going as going as fast then.
So, but even at that speed, passing cell sites just would not have kept hold of the call. It just
exactly. The handoff problem, as it's called. Yeah. I mean that was looked at by Keir Dewdney, I think. Probably 20 years ago now.
Right. Okay.
And he looked at all of that, and he went up in a light aircraft and started making phone calls to the ground back then, to his friend, and he did a sort of scientific study of that, and the calls didn't work. I think he got a connection for like 1 second or something, or one call, something like that. You can find those results archived away. But you see, again, why they needed to put all those stories out is to cover up the technology. They've got the technology, to transmute materials, change one element into another, to change buildings into dust in midair. It's not an instantaneous process, or at least it wasn't back then. It might be now. They've also got technology to project images in the sky, right? And what I put in my talks, and I think I've got it in the 9/11 Finding the Truth one, there's various versions of that knocking around on the web and stuff. Let's just go back to the day of 9/11 and look at those events again. And we look up at the tower. We see this plane coming in, and then an hour later, or whatever it is, or 45 minutes later, the building turns to dust. So you've got this what looks like a plane, but actually it turns out that it's a hologram of some kind, or a 3D image projection, and then this building turns to dust. How about we change that image of a plane to an image of a flying saucer, UFO? What do you got then? And we go over the Burj Khalifa or something.
Yes.
We've got the alien invasion.
Yes.
So that's what I argue, and I'm not the first to say it. Many people have said this over the years, and the fake alien invasion. But we were one of the few people to say, well, if you look at what happened on 9/11, that could be seen as a test run for the alien invasion. You turn a building to dust, you project the image of the flying saucer, and there you go, you've got it.
But there were so many things happened that day. I mean, the day itself, obviously, the numbers are quite significant.
Exactly.
The Twin Towers, and Chris mentioned the other week to me that the Solomon Building, so there's 2 towers in the Solomon Building there.
It's actually called the Salomon Brothers Building.
Yeah.
It's similar. I know what you're saying. It's similar. Yeah. And indeed, yes, absolutely. 2001, 11th September, 9/11, all of that. You've also got the Millennium Hotel, and that's right opposite the World Trade Center. So that, isn't that signpost? And if you look at the original website, when it was still a Hilton Hotel, I've got this archive somewhere, the design of that building was inspired by the monolith from the 2001 film. It actually says that on their website.
Somebody's writing a script somewhere, aren't they?
Absolutely. And there's a book by S.K. Bain. I think it's called Occult 9/11 or Black 9/11 or something. There's a couple of books specifically about 9/11, which cover some of those occult aspects. Look at Back to the Future, the first film. My friend Carl James did a very good analysis of Back to the Future.
Or Back to the Future, as we call it here.
You nearly said that
Back
then,
to the
didn't
Future,
You nearly said it then, Andrew.
People are not going to understand me in Yorkshire, are they? Unless I say tin, tin, tin.
Yeah. But there's so many aspects of it.
And there's also now, with the Millennium One, there's just a big black abyss there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. The 2 black holes. Yeah, it's very
creepy,
very spooky. Yeah.
Is that what you're going to build as a memorial?
No, exactly.
I would suggest that's a celebration of what they go away with.
Partly that, but also the fact that it's a water feature. Now, I don't know. You might not have heard of the similarities between World Trade Center Building Number 6, which had a big hole in the top, and what happened to the Alfred P. Murrah building. Do you know what the Alfred P. Murrah building is?
Yeah, go on.
That was a building that was destroyed in the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Guess what was across the road from there? Toasted cars. And guess what's there now? A water feature.
Really?
Guess what's at Shanksville? A water feature. So what's that about? And we would argue that it's something to do with residual energy effects at the site, which the water helped to calm down, because the ground was fuming after the destruction of the towers for months, even years possibly. You have this fuming coming out of the ground where these materials were still reacting, on with this process, whatever it was that was initiated by the technology. So, the water features, I think, are significant too.
Yeah, we're not talking of a small water feature from B&Q either.
No. And I believe Mark Conlon had found one, that there's one at the Pentagon as well. I think nearby the Pentagon as well. So the evidence for directed energy weapons at the Pentagon is less clear. Nevertheless, there is some there. And again, Mark's picked up some of that, and Dr. Wood had put some of that in her book originally. I think Mark found a little bit more, which potentially points to the use of directed energy weapons at the Pentagon. But the other big thing I should emphasize, of course, is that the big fear card that has been running for the last sort of 15, 20 years in parallel with 9/11 is climate change. But again, this is, again, people that talk about chemtrails, like Dame Wigington and stuff, he's been a big on the old geoengineering and stuff. He thinks Judy Wood's a fruitcake. I've got a recording of him dissing her.
Isn't it strange how you can talk about chemtrails and not link them two technologies together? That Judy Wood, because there is a connection, isn't there? I mean, Alana Freeland's spoken about the connection of that.
Like we were saying earlier, though, when you talk about energy weapons and moving storms, you're going into fantastical, aren't you? You're going into
You're going to
I was going to say, when you mentioned that before, the secret keeps itself for most people. It keeps itself for most people, and then for the rest of them, they kind of steer you away from it. And I particularly name people like Greer, Dame Wigington, Stephen E. Jones, James Corbett, for example. He won't talk about it. He won't talk about energy weapons and Dr. Judy Wood's research in a clear manner, in a manner which is appropriate to the amount of evidence which is there. And James Corbett's got a huge audience. Alex Jones, same. They won't talk about these things. They, in fact, insult Dr. Judy Wood or try and say that they've got more knowledge when they haven't. They don't have the PhDs that she has. And this is what I've written about in my book. What do these people think they're doing? They're not politicians. They're not rich businessmen, trying to protect their wealth. They're not politicians trying to protect their reputation. They're just podcasters or, alternative news hosts. What do you think they're doing? Saying that Judy Wood's wrong, or she's an idiot, or, or she doesn't know what she's talking about. Where is that coming from?
I mean,
why would they do that?
Even if they had a conversation and said evidence is very compelling, for instance, they don't have to agree with it, but they could actually say it's very compelling that, a read or not, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just strange.
Yeah. I mean, some of them do that, but then again, they forget that this has been taken to court, So we had to put the evidence so that it would stand up in court. And indeed, it did stand up in court. It just wasn't heard. The Supreme Court just wouldn't hear the case. They didn't say the evidence was wrong. The evidence has never been disproven, So we know that it's true. The debate for us ended probably 17 years ago, I would say, as to we know what happened on 9/11 in terms of what happened to the World Trade Center. People.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
People can say, I don't know what happened. Well, if you don't know what happened, you haven't looked at the evidence that's available. The evidence was all there by 2008, and it was just made. It just became better organized in terms of the documentation of it, as Dr. Judy Wood wrote the book between 2008 and 2010. And then we have this other guy who was involved in writing the book, Joseph P. Farrell. He's written lots of books about aliens and Roswell and Babylon's banksters and Roswell and the Reich. He got involved in editing the Where Did the Towers Go book. What did he want to do? He wanted to take out the pictures of the toasted cars. What's this guy doing? What's he doing? And he won't talk about it.
Why would he take those out there?
Well, exactly.
That's more than compelling evidence, because they were like 2 or 3 miles away from the actual event.
And why would the publisher that he was using, who were originally going to publish the book, why did they then want to reduce the length of the book and make all the pictures black and white? Why do they want to do that?
That's why.
Yeah, that's exactly what they
It seems that way, doesn't it?
And these are the people that are meant to be putting out truthful information. Joseph P. Farrell's not a politician. He's not he's not a businessman. He just writes books. You know, so this means there is an intelligence operation going on, a counterintelligence operation, and it involves a lot of people.
At a level that we'd never even get his head around.
You wouldn't,
because if you think about, I'll use Mockingbird as a prime example.
Yeah,
something like, and I'm not on the side of these people, but something like only 1% or 5%, I think the number was, of people who were involved knew about the operation. So that meant the majority of people who were actually involved and recruited didn't even know they were being recruited and involved in an operation. They were just being steered. And so even Joseph P. Farrell, for instance, if he is, I'm not saying he is, by the way, involved, but if he is, he might not even know he's been, because the publisher that publishes his books might say, we can't put that in or you won't get another book deal type of thing. That changes his mind very quickly.
Possibly. I don't know exactly how it works. All I can tell you about is my experience with these people. In the early days of the 9/11 Truth movement, as it were, in this country, I went down to London quite a few times and I met people there. And this was before I started getting involved with the Dr. Judy Wood material. And there were people like Ian Neal, who's no longer with us, Noel Glynn, who I think it might be still around. He'd be quite old now. He was quite old when I met him. Another guy called Andy Baker. And I was on a forum with these guys, and I met them in person. They knew me personally, as it were. They were still trying to diss the Dr. Judy Wood material, and I had no idea why, And Tony Gosling, he's another one. I think he's still knocking around. He wanted to sideline it. That's all in my book. And I'm thinking, what are these people doing?
It's too scary for a lot of people. That's one side of it. And it's not just a big leap. It's off the page, isn't it? Because
it's off the radar screen. That's the expression I use. It's off most people's radar screens. Yeah. So it doesn't take very much to discourage them from talking about it or thinking about it, because the implications are so vast, not only because of the technology itself or the implications of it, but of the cover-up of that technology, in that, what one guy I spoke to when I explained about Gage and some of the other people I've mentioned now and other people too, he said to me, he says, I can't believe this. I'm just going around slaying my Buddhas, because he'd held up these people as examples of truth tellers, and then he realized they were lying, when it came to 9/11, and there was no reason for them to lie, and he would write to them and say, have you read this book? and they'd write back and say, oh, no, I won't read that book because it's disinformation, something like that.
So I suppose the difference is it takes it from a crazy nut conspiracy to a global conspiracy that everyone's involved in and everyone's government is involved in.
A state, really, they're behind the government. It's even more deeper than that, isn't it, Chris? You think about the governments come and go, don't they? This lies, it's still here.
So to keep it in even though you think it's some people, I suppose, even though they still think it's a conspiracy, they can understand that it could be a small group of people that put some bombs in the building and blew it up. Yeah. But then to go to the next level, you've got to really open your mind a little bit, haven't you, I suppose?
You have. My feelings are as well, from what I've seen and the sorts of things I've described to you in the last half an hour or whatever, is that there is something about this information which is it's really, really, really important, because it's like, if you're not ready for it, if you're not ready for it spiritually, really, I suppose is what I'm saying, then you're just not gonna be able to deal with it. You just can't process it, and it's like there's something really important for the humanity involved with this information. And I kind of may put it like this, and I've said this in other podcasts quite a few times. A chap that I got to know quite well, he lives in Cardigan. I haven't seen him for a good few years now. But he was into like yoga and tantric practices and this sort of thing. So he's a very spiritual person. And he'd read the Judy Wood book and he'd watched the videos and he got his head around it. And he realized what it was about. And he said to me one time, what happened on 9/11 at the World Trade Center involved the forces from which life itself arises. That's the way that he put it, and I think he's dead on with that.
Hang
He's
on.
dead on with it, and that's why it's somehow linked into our consciousness. It's like you were saying, you got that top tier, but then there's another level of stuff that's going on, like the collective consciousness, the human consciousness, something.
Some might call it God or whatever they want to call it.
Whatever it is,
the Matrix, whatever you want to call it.
This greater thing. It is kind of like saying, this isn't coming out yet. You're not getting this out yet because of whatever reason. I don't know the reason. That's what I've come to.
I think it could be what you said earlier, Andrew, where the hologram thing, the saving for the fake alien invasion, and the energy weapon, we just can't know about that now because there may be even the forest fires that we were talking about and stuff. Maybe, like you said, that was all a tech, but there's so many things that were just pivotal at that moment in time with the 9/11. The visual trauma.
Listen to this, Andrew. Right, I've been doing some recent. I don't know if you've followed our stuff, but we do a lot of research into. I do a lot of genealogy research and stuff like that into individuals, right? And as well as like the business backgrounds and stuff like that. But anyway, for some reason I started doing George Bush. I'll tell you why, because I listened to Crow 777. They did a 2-hour podcast about the Bush family, a recent Bush family. So I thought, I've already done some rudimentary research on the Bushes. So I did some research. Anyway, one of his great-grandfathers, George, all the Bush family, great-grandfather, was a Viking called Rollo, who was given the dukedom of Normandy in 9/11. The year 9/11. And the hair stood on the back of my head, hands, right? And this guy's nickname, Rollo, was called Rollo the Walker. So all these Vikings had like the warrior, the killer, whatever. He was called the Walker. And obviously George Herbert Walker Bush, George Walker Bush. Yeah. And there were several things like this in this research, in the historic research, which I'll be putting out at some point in the next few months. Linked it all back to 9/11. It's fucking amazing. And New Orleans as well. It linked back to New Orleans as well.
Oh, right.
Bush was in power, obviously, during New Orleans, wasn't it?
Yeah.
During the floods. Again, that involved water. But, it was very interesting.
I remember David Icke saying that all the US presidents, the winners that won the elections, each one had the most royal blood in them of all the candidates or something. So the bloodlines are very important. And I mean, I don't know whether you've come across this chap called I'll remember his name in a minute. 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Fritz Springmeier. Yeah. Because I have a friend called Conrado Salascano, who's Spanish, and he knows Fritz. He wrote to him a lot. He knows, and Fritz Springmeier. And he wrote because Fritz Springmeier went to prison. He was in prison for a few years. I think he was out now, and they imprisoned him for something.
He was a fake burglar, I think, and like an armed robber. Something bizarre, yeah.
Wow.
It's quite a religious guy, you know. It didn't strike me as an armed robber.
No. But I watched one of his videos. I think it was from that. What was it called? It was some Christian outfit, and he did a video of there called 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and that's probably like 1990s. It's 30-year-old, you know. And it's really good.
Yeah, it is very good. Anybody can find that. Anybody can find that on YouTube.
That were in the good days of YouTube. I don't think he'll be there anymore.
The free for all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you were saying about the the high level cover up and that. Again, in summary, what I've said is if you look at Dr. Judy Wood's research and you look at 9/11 and you study it and you understand it and you work out that it is true, some of the pillars, three of the main fear pillars that they're using to control the world right now and have been for the last 20 years are gone. So the global terrorism threat, that's gone because it wasn't hijackers, right? And then you've got the climate change agenda, that's gone because that they can control the weather. They've controlled storm systems. And then you've got the energy scarcity paradigm, which of course they've used to build all these wind farms everywhere and shut down all the power stations and everything. That's gone as well because that free energy technology is real and you can get as much energy as you need from the ether, with probably certain caveats, but you can do it. All those three things are neutralized once you understand and have comprehended what's in Dr. Judy Wood's Where Did the Towers Go book.
Well, if Dr. Hutchinson I presume is a doctor,
just a John. No, it's just a John.
Right.
Yeah.
If just a John Hutchinson, right, can produce what they were producing, and he had I'd call it the intelligence apparatus in America going to see him, what on earth are they doing with it?
Yeah, exactly.
If he could produce that in his own little workshop, what on earth are they doing with that?
There's so many stories, isn't there? People who've got close and then vanished, or they've sold it to the energy companies, and then the blueprint. Yeah, it's gone on forever,
right.
hasn't it? Yeah.
That's right. I've got another presentation called Infinite Energy, but not for the masses, which is oriented around that. A lot of my presentations, what they do is they'll start off with a given topic like energy or climate or whatever, and then at the end I've got 9/11. It kind of brings all of them together.
Yeah. Do you know what, Andrew? I remember seeing on Tomorrow's World of all things when I was a kid, and it stuck really vividly in my mind. And I've actually saved the video. I found it on YouTube, and it was of a guy, and they said they've made this technology, and they called it like a flying dustbin, and it was going to be used for military usage. And there was a guy, and I remember seeing it as a kid, and there's a guy, and he stood in like a dustbin-shaped thing, and he's flying across treetops, like leaning. This is in the 80s, yeah. And he's like, shh, and he's just shooting along, and I'm thinking, I'm sure I saw that, or did I dream it, and I found it on YouTube. I've actually got it saved. One of the only videos.
Oh, you have to send me that. I've not seen that.
Yeah, send it me as well, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I'll have a look, see if we can find it now.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and there's a lot of stories like that. I mean, I remember, you remember Dave Lee Travis, and I used to catch him on a Saturday or a Sunday morning whenever he was on, and it was probably, I think it must have been 1980s or 1990s, because when I lived in Nottingham, I distinctly remember hearing it then. And he read out this appeal from this guy, and he says, I've just got this letter from this guy, and he's written to me because nobody will listen to him. And he's developed this engine, and this engine, it'll do 100 miles to the gallon, or something, or 1,000 miles to the gallon or something. He gave a few details, and he says, somebody flipping right to this guy, and listen to him, because it sounds really interesting. And that was flipping Dave Lee Travis on Radio 1,
But we all remember going back into the early 80s when they had the Japanese guy selling the Volkswagen Polo for some reason, while they had a Japanese guy, don't
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Very reliable, he was doing that, And it was the first car that could do 50 miles or whatever it was to the gallon.
Right.
Miles to the gallon or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that technology, I mean, that's just normal combustion engine technology.
It's conventional technology, just refined, yeah.
Yeah. So now they could really get it to 1,000 miles per gallon or 10,000 miles per gallon if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, I remember growing up, Dom, there was stories, some guy had a car running on orange peel, that vanished.
Yeah.
There was a guy had one running on water, that vanished. And then you think of Back to the Future, when Doc comes back from
future.
Back to Future, Mr. Future.
Do you remember when Doc comes back from the future?
1.21 gigawatts!
Do you remember when Doc comes back from future? And he just opens the top of the can, puts a load of garbage in, doesn't he? Then shuts it to make it go.
I've got a very interesting clip related to that. Robert Zemeckis, who was made Back to the Future, and another guy, I forget Robert. There was Robert Zemeckis and another Robert. I've got a clip of them, and they're talking about that very thing you just mentioned about the Mr. Fusion thing. And it's a bit weird because they were talking about this. But it wasn't until 4 years later that Pons and Fleischmann came out with their cold fusion process, which was like what Doc Brown was using on the car years earlier. Or maybe that was late, the second film that came out, and that's why it's the second film.
The guy that Jones took apart.
Correct. So Stephen E. Jones led this vote as part of a scientific committee to block the research of Pons and Fleischmann because he said it wasn't viable, and Pons and Fleischmann knew that it was. So, and then this Robert Zemeckis clip says, Pons and Fleischmann didn't know what they were doing. Those two chemists didn't know what they were doing. So, like, they were repeating this propaganda that Pons and Fleischmann didn't know what they were doing. That wasn't true. Their experiments had been reproduced by several teams, including John Bockris. So, in other words, that got into Back to the Future as just a fictional thing. And then when they were interviewed about that, they essentially disparaged Pons and Fleischmann because they didn't know that their experiments had been reproduced because all the press and media had said they hadn't.
So just to reiterate, prior to 9/11, Stephen E. Jones was the one that sort of voted these two guys off who found this new technology.
Yeah.
And then he was the one dismissing Judy Wood's work.
Correct. Correct. And we've got a bit of timeline of that as well as a timeline of the events related to that on my website, because there's a couple of other characters involved. And one of our fellow sort of researchers, Russ Gerst, he originally put that together. And I actually had somebody writing to me about that. It was really weird. There's another story relating to that, which you've just reminded me of, where I had this woman wrote to me called Caroline Louise, and she started writing to me specifically about Stephen E. Jones. And her interest in that specific area was really peculiar. And she said, I want to write this book about the history of the 9/11 truth movement in the UK. And I said, that's nice for you. Have you read my book? And she sort of gave some muted response. And she said, I just wanted to make sure things were represented fairly, and blah, blah, blah. She went to this big, long thing. And I've got an article about this in my website. And immediately I got the sense that she wanted to rewrite history.
Right.
This woman, Caroline Louise, she called herself, which isn't unusual because it's two first names together, isn't it? And anyway, I found out that she was actually an author, and she'd written a book about Lewis Carroll, and the author Lewis Carroll, that is. And I found the page about that on Wikipedia, and it said that her book about Lewis Carroll attempted to rewrite history. And before I even knew that, that's what I got a sense of her. She was trying to do with what I'd written about Jones and Fetzer and all those guys. She was trying to do that. And she lied, basically. I've got evidence that she lied about what she was really trying to do when she wrote to me. And that's all in this article, because I found that she'd commented on this video, which was, kind of critical of Stephen E. Jones. And she'd gone onto this YouTube video to comment in support of him. And I found this specific video, and I quote that in the article. I couldn't believe it.
Interesting to do a book on the writer of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
As well. And he's got a royal bloodline, by the way.
Has he?
I've done his lineage, and he was involved with. Let me get this right. Aldous Huxley's mother. So Dodson, as he was known as, Lewis Carroll, was known for taking. He was also an early photographer, and he was known for taking pictures of young girls. And so Alice, the young girl in the Alice in Wonderland, was based on someone he used to photograph. And he also took pictures of Julian Huxley and Aldous Huxley's mother, Julia Huxley. Julia Arnold, as she was called. Her and her sister, as they were kids. I've got a picture of them as children with Dodson. And then afterwards, they found out that Dodson or Lewis Carroll was, let's just say, liked younger girls.
Why would you let some bloke draw your kid?
No, not draw, but take pictures in different clothing.
But then they came into the drawings actually in the book, didn't they?
In the book,
Just interesting, Andrew. You said when you said her name's weird. Caroline Louise, was it? Yeah, Caroline's usually a C, isn't it? That's in numerology. That's 33. But it's interesting that you pointed out that it's an unusual name, and then it just happens to be a 33. I think.
Yeah, maybe that was part of it. And,
Just to interject there, that video I was talking about earlier, I actually went on my YouTube and I thought it's not going to be there now. And it's still there. I've just sent it to you, Andrew. I've just sent it to you.
Bro.
And it's about 1 minute and 28 long. It's been on there for 18 years, right? And I literally, going back 10 years or so, I thought, I remember
sending it, man. Yeah.
But it's really pixelated, but it's not CGI, because I remember watching it in the 80s, but it's just a really bad video. But this guy's, I just watched it. It's 1 minute and 28 seconds long. He's floating around in a dustbin, flying across treetops.
Excellent.
Where did that go? Why did they show it on Tomorrow's World in the 80s and I remembered it?
I'll definitely have watched that.
I think the bane in the people's life, going back to the top table and their management, like Keir Starmer or Boris Johnson, for instance, are people like Andrew or me and Chris, or people listening who are willing to document all this nonsense going on.
It's got strange memories, I think, haven't we?
Yeah. We tap into some sort of energy that it's been lied to.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but we just don't like being lied to. I think it's an overriding factor of people like yourself, Andrew, that just don't like being lied to, don't like being bullshitted.
Yeah, that's it. You're looking for authenticity in things, in people, in statements, in evidence. And, absolutely. And I think what I've pointed out before is that if you're involved in any type of engineering activity and you have, you care about what you do, then you're more likely to resonate with stuff that's authentic and real and truthful. Because in engineering, if you're trying to get something to work, you can't lie. You can't just pretend, because it either works or it doesn't work. And you've also got to solve problems to work out, why, when something doesn't work. If you want to get something working, you've got to solve problems. So you've got to do analysis, you've got to do fault finding, you've got to say, why doesn't this work? And I think that, for me, certainly, personally, and I think the same is true of Richard D. Hall and Dr. Judy Wood, because we all have a background in engineering. So you're going in to look at something, how does this work? How do we get it to work? Why doesn't it work? How, if it works, how can we improve it?
That's really interesting you say that, because Mike Eden was on it, and he kind of said a similar thing about the jib jabs. He had that kind of analytical mind of problem solving.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've never thought of it like that, but you could say the same with Dom about business. I make sculptures, Andrew. It's a similar thing, you're constantly solving problems to get a result, aren't you? It's a similar kind of...
It's a problem-solving discipline, and I mean, it's not just engineering, but I think specifically engineering. Obviously, even like you say, if you're doing a sculpture or something, and you've got to work out how...
On a lesser scale. It's a lesser scale than engineering. It's got a bit, but you do have the same problem-solving kind of...
that's right.
Factual mind, I suppose.
That's right, and Dr. Wood talks about that as one of her... in some of her latest presentations, she brought that into the start, saying, well, why don't people more understand this? Because we don't, a lot of our problems now are solved for us. When we were just working on the land, building our own fires, that sort of thing, working directly with nature, we had to solve our own problems. But now, if your shower's broken, you normally don't fix it yourself. You call somebody in to do it, whatever it is, So we're more lazy about solving problems in many cases.
Also, like the engineering thing, you do something once, then the next time you do it better, the next time you do it. We don't do anything really. So
no,
there's no the problem solving part of your mind is not functioning, is it?
Not as much. No,
the parasite that's whatever's taken over the last 50, 100 years has squeezed out the whole essence of everybody, hasn't it? So a lot of it. We think nobody cooks anymore. Your mother, our mother, used to cook Sunday dinner, for instance, and that had certain energy attached to it that she was providing for her family,
Correct.
And so the food actually tasted that. You could feel that energy in the food, thinking back. And I'm not looking through rose-tinted spectacles here.
No, but also
happened.
I thought you said roast-tinted spectacles.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
He was thinking about his lunch. There's also that element of as a village, as a community. You'd have someone who was an engineer. You'd have someone who was a sculptor, in a different way. You'd have a cook or whatever, and you'd all club together to solve all the problems on a slightly massive scale. And all that's.
I always remember, Chris, right, when we pull out at farm and we'd be in a truck, for instance, and now we're all old bangers and they never started. But everybody would come out of the house and give you a push.
Yeah.
People are pushing down the road, help you push down the road.
I had to happen me a lot because I had a real banger.
Everyone had a banger. Everyone had a banger. So everyone.
And also every Saturday morning, how many guys were underneath the cars tinkering? And even though they weren't engineers or mechanics, they tinkered, didn't they? They pissed about with it.
Still goes on. Yeah, I mean, it still goes on. People restoring classic cars. But I used to have a banger as well. It's a Vauxhall Chevette, which we called a Vauxhall Shove-It. That was my first car.
So just a quick couple. We've been on an hour. Can you believe it? A couple of quick questions, just to round 9/11 off. Is Dr. Wood still doing the rounds? I haven't seen anything recently.
She's not very active at the moment. She's had some health issues and stuff. She is still around.
Yeah.
But she's, I mean, like me, I'm still around.
Yeah.
But I only do talks when I'm asked to do them. Like if somebody asked me, and same with Dr. Wood, if somebody asked her to do a talk, she would probably do one if she could. She could travel.
Yeah.
She's had some problems with her ankles and things and her hands. I think she was doing some gardening or something. She broke her hand. That was a few months back, so that set her back. But she's extremely resilient.
Yes,
she is.
You need to be doing what she's done,
but mentally and physically. I mean, it's unbelievable. When she stayed at my house a couple of times. This was a good few years ago, and she, went to pick her up from the train station. She had this rucksack, and the rucksack was like about 50 years old, and I picked it up. And it's like really heavy, and I couldn't barely lift it. And she's just like carrying it like there's nothing going on, you know.
Yeah.
I think, flipping it, you must be really strong. You know, she is physically strong,
Yeah.
and obviously intellectually very strong. And if I don't know if you have ever heard what happened to her in the 80s.
No.
Did you ever hear?
No.
This is kind of where you do ultimately end up in some strange territory. Well, she was involved in a hit and run.
Right.
She used to do cycling, and she's talked about this on the odd interview. She doesn't make a big thing of it for obvious reasons, really. But this trucker ran her over, and she ended up in a ditch, and somebody found her like in the nick of time, basically, and she ended up getting airlifted to hospital, and she ended up in a coma for 6 years. She was in a coma for 6 years.
Oh my word!
Worse. And
she left the hospital with medical bills of $250,000, which were never paid.
Yeah.
And she calls it her death. She said that she died, and she came back, so to speak.
Yeah.
Wow, yes.
Yeah. And so she was. That's really weird. There's a whole set of weird circumstances.
Events,
yeah. Back then, that was back in 85. I think that happened. So,
I mean, going on some of the people we speak to, Andrew, after thinking of when we spoke to Dave the other day, Dom, could that have been dark forces from some
Terminator type
who knew what she was going to be producing?
I've wondered about that. It looks, sometimes you look at these situations that you come across and think these people can see through time. I've that's crossed my mind several times in all the research I've done. Or they can either see through time or travel through time
or alter it.
Or alter it. You think that's the only conclusion I can draw from this. And it's almost like, well, they had the chance to kill her back then and they failed.
Yes.
So here she is.
She came back stronger.
And she came back stronger.
Or even it opened a door that meant she was going to do the work.
Something like that. Yeah,
well.
Exactly. And that's the sort of thinking you get into, isn't it? When you really get heavily into all this stuff, you're just completely lifted out of that mundanity of thinking, aren't you?
The fascinating thing is the more you go into this world, sitting in a pub and saying to someone 9/11 were fake, then you start talking about what we just talked about. You're going into a totally different paradigm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But what it does make you realise is going back to fear and no fear. Right, on this surface level, you can have fear, but when you think about everything, it's so big. If there's anything that 2020 did for me, everything was so huge. It was on a scale that you felt. I felt alive. I couldn't. I know a lot of people were fearful and what have you, but it made me feel like there's more to where we are than we can ever imagine.
That's all your suspicions became solid, didn't they?
Yeah, a lot of them did.
It was a real earth-changing, mind-changing moment, and into another realm. Was 9/11 took me into another place, and so did 2020. But we'll try and cover that. I want to cover